Welcome to HMG Live, a production of HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you to reimagine the business and reinvent the future of work. Home to the HMG Marketplace, a fast, easy, safe, and efficient way to connect with the right vendors for your technology needs.
My own personal experience with connections actually does start with HMG, where I would attend HMG events for the networking opportunities, the opportunity to learn from my peers. It's one of the ways that I became an effective CIO at KLA Tencor. And it was actually at an HMG event in 2010 that I got connected to the recruiters at Facebook through a CIO here. These types of events and functions are really important, both for people to develop themselves, but also for us to just make our profession more effective, because we can cross-pollinate ideas and help each other innovate by learning from each other's mistakes and each other's successes. And I think HMG probably does this better than anybody.
And now, a warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the 2020 Silicon Valley CIO Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, Lead Principal of HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today, excited about today's agenda. I think we have one killer agenda, one amazing agenda, folks. It is unquestionably the best time ever to be a technology leader. And I mean to be a CIO, a CTO, a CISO, a CDO, C-1, any aspect, anywhere within the technology enterprise, best time ever. And it's really a time to think deeply about, your career ascent. Where are you today in your current network, with your current network of peers and friends? And where do you want to end up in 1, 3, 5, 10 years? And how are you going to get there? How are you going to package yourself, brand yourself, and become that talent magnet? Be a talent magnet, attracting and retaining world-class talent in your existing role, your existing company, with your existing team, and set yourself up for greatness in your current situation and plan for the future. As you heard Tim Campos, Tim is a good friend of mine and a good friend of the HMG network. I spoke with Tim just last night about his journey in his new startup. But it just, it's really an amazing time to be in technology. I've been in it 30 years. Many of us have been in the industry 10, 20, 30 years. Probably the most exciting time, most challenging time, and the most really biggest time ever to lead passionately, lead courageously, lead authentically. And I'm going to challenge you, if you're not a little bit uncomfortable, not a little bit over your skis, over the tips of your skis, you're not really driving or pushing the envelope. So we do, again, have an amazing agenda. Let's get on with the program here. Real excited. We couldn't do what we do without our partners. A big shout out to Better Cloud, Checkpoint, Darktrace, Duo, Informatica, Avanti, Log.io, Nutanix, Zoom, Xylo. Many of you have been with us for 1, 3, 5 years as great long-term partners and friends. As we go forward, you can't do what we do, innovate what we do on the edge, or innovate and drive transformation on any level without tier 1, A1 partners. Difference between a partner and a vendor. Partner really stays with you. Please, when they reach out to you, reach back to them, set up a meeting, and support the HMG platform, the HMG network in today's summit. A shout out to SIM International's president, CEO Mark Taylor. Hey, Mark, welcome to the program today.
Hey, Hunter, great to see you this morning. I hope things are well for you.
Awesome. Great time up here in New England, starting to get ready for the big freeze. The winter's right around the corner.
It is right around the corner. Well, we're here in Austin, in the Silicon Hills, as opposed to the Silicon Valley. It's a little warmer than that, but we have a great community out in the Valley in California, and a great team there. Steve Callagher and the group has built, and certainly encourage those that are part of the community to check in with the local SIM chapter. And Hunter, thank you for your continued investment in that community, in the Silicon Valley area, and with SIM all across the country. We're grateful to have your partnership.
Well, Mark, I'm passionate about SIM. I'm a SIM board member up in Connecticut. I've been involved for 20 years. And I know Steve's doing a great job with his team in Silicon Valley, along with Todd DeChinga, relaunching it just 5 years ago or so, and it's really it's going gangbusters.
Yeah. Thanks again, Hunter. We appreciate it.
Good to see you. Talk soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
We talked about the marketplace. It's an amazing way to dive into tier one, A1 partners from around the world that you would not normally get in front of. Many of these companies are in the early stage of launching, with some quite further down the road, like Slack as a tool that we all probably depend on and use in every day in our technology role. Founding partner Darktrace, please go to the HMG Marketplace. You can locate it off the homepage and learn more about what we're doing there with some great partners. We're going to put a little quiz here for you to help us refine the marketplace. What is your organization's specific technology needs now? If you could fill that out while we play this digital asset, that would be great.
Many tech leaders are struggling to find the right solution to their technical business problems. HMG Strategy has created the HMG Marketplace and Reference Center to connect tech leaders with subject matter experts from peer-vetted providers of critical services and hot new technologies.
The HMG Marketplace, think of it as a reference center, a library to find out more about our partner companies and then set up a meeting.
It's challenging for all of us that we can't be together at these events. You won't be meeting necessarily with a salesperson. You're going to be meeting with myself, our senior executive team.
This truly is a game changer. So let's get rolling. First up is Gary Sorrentino. Gary's the Global Deputy CIO of Zoom. Gary, great to see you today.
Morning, Hunter. How are you?
Excellent. Where are you coming in from today?
I'm still out in Long Island.
Excellent. How's the beach? How's the beach and the surf treating you?
Yeah, we mean 32-degree weather. That's more like what we're talking about here, right?
Right. Hey, Gary, you have a really unique company, a unique culture, and a really unique CEO in Eric Wan. A little background around the culture of the company and how important your customer relations are, and how you love your customers.
Well, you said the magic word. Eric's all about clients and customers and prospects. And so the culture of the company is you can't do enough for customers. Our goal is about happiness and love. It's in what Eric talks about all the time. It really is about embracing our clients to make them successful, to make sure that the products we work with them on makes them successful, does what they need. But it really is just going above and beyond. I spend part of my day just calling up people who are clients just to say, hi, how are you? What's going on? How can I help you? The world is changing, as you said very elegantly at the beginning. And right now, people need to continue to pivot. And so it's very hard for CIOs and CISOs today to stay on top of everything that's changing, even in the vendors that they already own. And so I think it's really great that senior members of Zoom reach out to their clients all the time just to say, hey, look, we're doing something new because the world is slowly pivoting again. Unfortunately, we're going through a second or third wave, depending on how you look at it. People are trying to figure out that return to the office. And I know we're trying to keep up with new innovation. And so it's all about reaching out to say, hey, the product does a lot more than you're currently doing. How do we help you?
Hey, you recently had Zoomtopia, and you had some really interesting announcements regarding a marketplace and other aspects as you innovate the business model. What's on your mind there?
So on Zoom is what you're talking about as our marketplace. And that's going to be a place where people can put videos for sale, for rent, however you want to do it, piano lessons, things like that, yoga lessons and things like that. So it'll be a really cool marketplace for people to start businesses on Zoom. But I think a lot of what Zoomtopia was about features and functionality to help as we go back, showing these backgrounds where now teachers can actually put the students in little desks and keep track of them, keeping track of even the screen that we're on, being able to move people around and being able to lock that in place. We did release end-to-end security. That was very big for us, and that's available to both free and paid clients. So we're doing a lot right now to say, how are we meeting our clients in the new hybrid? Virtual kiosks came up the other day where you'll be able to walk into buildings and maybe the person you're going to talk to is not actually there. It's a virtual kiosk now to say, hi, I'd like to go see Gary. He's on the 30th floor And they say, hold on a second, let me call them. And it's not a person, it's a Zoom terminal.
Interesting times. You know, we're re-entering the office and the hybrid work environment. What are the recommendations that you'd give to CISOs as they look at securing every aspect of the enterprise?
So I think right now we're going to end up with three kinds of people. We're going to end up with employees that go to the office every day, and we need to have a security policy for them, update it for the new way that we work. We are going to have people who are going to work home 100% of the time, and we're going to have a security policy for the way they work. But we're going to have that team in the middle, that sometimes works at work and sometimes works at home. And we have to figure out what kind of security policies are we going to work with them on? Because when this all happened, around March 13th, we sent everybody home, and it was a rush to grab technology. I'll take a keyboard, I'll take a mouse, I'll take whatever I could take to bring home to work from home. We didn't think about grabbing documents and other things like that. But if you work 50% of the time at work and 50% of the time at home, are you going to bring home things that probably shouldn't have left the four walls because of the 2 weeks that you work home? And so I think that middle ground for CISOs, we're working with them to figure out, okay, how are we going to have policies for those groups? How are we going to train them that in some cases they're two people? They're a work from home person and they're a work from the office person.
You know, thinking about this re-entering the work environment and the office, are there any new enhancements that you've developed?
Yeah, so we're coming up with a couple of new things, and Zoomtopia was a great way, and I'll send to your team a great link that lists everything what we're doing. Hopefully you can broadcast it out to the people here. But at the end of the day, things are going to be like, so Hunter, you're at your office with 5 people and you're talking to me and I'm home. So I see one little screen, 5 people sitting in an office and me. Chances are I'm going to be the second-class citizen in that conversation because you will be talking to each other as if I'm just a TV on the wall. Well, we're actually looking in the room and taking all 5 of you and making you 5 separate boxes so that I feel we're back to where we are today. Everybody's on even turf.
Interesting.
So those are some of the things that we're looking for. A lot of also is going to be contactless. You're not going to want to walk up to that whiteboard, pick up that crayon or whatever device that someone else has touched. So you're going to want to be able to control that whiteboard from your phone. So a lot of what we're looking for is contactless when you're into the meetings. You should be able to go into the meeting and from your own device that you brought to work, start that meeting. So we're really looking at the return to work.
You know, Gary, I got to believe that the productivity, not only did it stay stable, in some ways it accelerated because of Zoom's ease of use and flexibility and really building a high-performing organizations.
Yeah, I think it's 2 things, right? So right now we're all on a lot of calls, a lot of video calls. So video fatigue is real. I think what's happening now, we're figuring out who needs to be on that call. And it is okay to shut your camera off and just be audio on that call. And so like every other new shiny toy, sometimes we overuse it a little bit or a different way. And I think we've been using this enough now where through some training that we do and through training that companies are doing, they are learning the right way to use the tools. I was kidding someone the other day. For the first time, my Zoom phone rang. Right now, I'm sitting here out in Long Island for what, 9 months, right? I got a phone call and then someone called on my cell phone. Normally it would have been a Zoom call. And so I think what we're learning is there are many ways to communicate today and using it the right way.
You know, one of the main security features CISOs are looking for in collaboration industry is end-to-end encryption. Can you explain your take on that?
Yeah, so Zoom came out with end-to-end encryption, very similar to some of the well-known chat devices that do end-to-end. Rather than a Zoom server creating the key, we have true end-to-end where the client creates the key. So Hunter, your desktop would create the key. It would pass it to me through public cryptography, all right? I would have a key, you would have a key. The person in the middle, Zoom, is really just moving around the packets. It's not part of the equation. It doesn't get to see the meeting. Now, with any end-to-end solution, you lose a little bit of functionality. It's very hard for me to bring in an audio person talking on a cell phone when I'm not invited to the party, right? Because I don't get to see it. So our next step is we are moving further down the road to bring connectors in where you'll be able to get some of the vendor-based functionality back, even in end-to-end communication.
You know, this is all really good stuff, Gary. You know, when you think of your customers and clients, what does a world-class engagement look like? What does a really happy customer look like to you in terms of a vision statement?
So I would think that people who embrace our meeting in our webinar platform, of course, is how most people start. You really want to then talk about how do you bring into things like Zoom Phone, because you want to be able to, we are going to go back to a world where we're going to be running between meetings. Remember, we used to run between elevators. You can start the meeting on your cell phone. When you get to a room with a video, you can escalate it up to a video call, and also move into very frictionless rooms. You want to be able to walk into a room and have a D10 meet or have something on the wall that's a Zoom terminal, where this way you can then from your phone start that call contactless. So yes, unfortunately, having all the same vendor makes that really possible. We do integrate with all the other vendor components out there, but I think at the end of the day, you want to make it so the technology works the way your users want it to work. The days of, hey, we have to teach people how technology works, I think is over. People demand that it works a certain way. And I think that's what our goal is that we want our technology to work the way our users want it to work.
You know what's amazing about how successful you all been and how much you've helped everyone through this pandemic, whether it be the enterprise or families, you guys have really kept the level head, and your level of humility in terms of how you engage with the world is fascinating. A little bit on that.
Well, we're still thinking about that. Like for Thanksgiving, we're upgrading everybody from free to you can make as long as calls you want for Thanksgiving, because families are going to be disconnected this Thanksgiving, and we don't want people to have to make 40-minute calls and then stop. So we kind of looked at the holiday and said, you know what, let's just make it unlimited for that day. And we just had an announcement about that now. So I agree with you. We're moving so far and so fast, but we're still stopping to think about our clients and go, that would be something nice to do for Thanksgiving.
Hey, Gary, great to have you on the summit today in the program. Really always appreciate your engagement and support. A real
Great to
thought
see
leader.
you. I'll talk to you soon.
Great. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Next up, we have Dave Politis. David is the founder and CEO of Better Cloud, impacting and accelerating SaaS adoption of the modern IT team. David, great to see you.
Good to see you, Hunter.
Where are you coming in from today?
I'm in New York City.
Okay, so another East Coast individual.
Getting a little cold. Getting a little cold.
It's definitely getting towards Thanksgiving, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, what's on your mind? You're passionate about the cloud and passionate about making the cloud a better experience for your clients. What did you see 8 to 10 years ago in the cloud architecture layers in terms of openings or open space or white space? And what does Better Cloud do?
Yeah. So Better Cloud we're 9 years old. And to your point, you look back 9 years ago and there was no Zoom, there was no Slack, there was no Office 365. But what we saw 9 years ago is we saw companies, enterprises moving to cloud for productivity, for CRM, for all these things. It was the very beginnings of that. And what we saw is that there was going to be a need for some layer on top of all those applications to give IT better visibility, better control, automation, security around these SaaS applications. And so we've been going at this for a while. And of course, in the last, in the last 8-9 months, it's just been, it's really what I thought would happen much earlier. This tipping point for SaaS adoption in the enterprise has obviously come. I expected it years ago, but it's obviously come in the last 8-9 months. And how we help our customers very specifically is we give them the ability to discover which SaaS applications are in their environment, so they can see which applications are there, how much is being spent on those applications, who's using them. They can automate all the user management, the entitlements, configuration management of those SaaS applications. And ultimately they can secure all the sensitive data that lives there, their files, their GitHub repositories, their calendars. So it's really the full life cycle of a SaaS application or a user within those SaaS applications.
So, hey, David, help me out with this. Just take me back through, again, the last 10 to 15 years and right up to today, modern day. Why would people not know the complete portfolio of SaaS options, the SaaS sprawl across the enterprise? Give us a primer on that.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen, I think if you go back, again, a while ago, it was really, you had these very homogenous stacks, right? And it was all Microsoft or it was all IBM. If you go pre-SaaS. And then as SaaS started to evolve, it became much easier, right, for people to start building SaaS products. There's now really a SaaS product for every I mean, department, function, industry. I mean, there's a SaaS application for everything. And so if you go from where there was really none to where there is today, one for everything in every group and every department, what's happened is it's gone from IT procuring everything to really this, and as people know, is shadow IT, which you've got users who are going out and procuring their own applications or lines of business saying, hey, I'm going to go get this new application. I'm going to deploy to my team. And so there's just become this massive sprawl in terms of the applications that are being used in an environment. And I actually think that concept of shadow IT has really changed a lot in the last year and a half, where IT is starting to think about, how do I actually look at which applications are in use and which applications all my users are starting to bring into the enterprise, and how do I maybe turn that into a sanctioned application? How do I integrate that? How do I get a corporate kind of contract, enterprise contract? We're seeing that right now as an example with a Zoom or with a Miro, virtual whiteboarding application that we see in our customer base exploding, where people are using that, users are using it, and now we're seeing IT go and say, hey, we see that in our environment, and we actually want to bring that in as a sanctioned app. But I think the biggest thing is going from this homogeneous stack to heterogeneous stack, from IT procured everything to end users, departments, and IT bringing things into the enterprise. And so that's been that evolution over time.
Hey, David, it's a most exciting time right now to be a tech leader, right? And leading courageously into the C-suite and the line of business. And I know shadow IT has been out there forever. It seems like 30 or 40 years. I'm actually an okay fan about shadow IT because it pushes the innovation out to the edge, and it pushes the whole enterprise up and out to the customer, reimagining, reinventing the customer experience as well as business models. So I would say your whole layer, Better Cloud's whole viewpoint really matters more than ever now in this shadow IT world where you give a thumbs up to it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I think I've told you this before. I think that what has happened in the last 8 months, if you go back to March or February, March timeframe, it was probably one of the most challenging times really to be an IT leader. And if you fast forward to today, I do think that it's not the way we would have wanted it to happen, but IT, it has to be the most exciting time. It has to be, the seat at the table has changed for IT leaders in the last 8 months. And what I see people telling me, they've been all the conversation I've been having is IT wants to enable and empower their users to do their best work. And frankly, IT is actually responsible for pretty much all the interactions that their users are having these days. Yes, we're starting to go back into the office slowly, but every technology is now literally touching every interaction that an employee has internally, externally, with partners, with customers, and IT is responsible for all of that. And so for us, we want to make that possible by giving IT the ability to automate all of this work. You want to onboard an employee, you shouldn't have to take 5 hours to do that. You should click a button and it does that. You want to offboard someone, it should happen in a second. You want to make sure that people can share files. You don't want to lock down all your file sharing systems. You want people to share the files and be collaborative and bring partners into Slack, but you want to do it securely. And Better Cloud essentially allows you to do all of those things just with more peace of mind. But it's all about driving adoption of SaaS, reducing the friction. That's what I've spent literally my entire career, even before Better Cloud. I mean, my entire career has been in that. And so it is exciting to see now businesses, IT, exec boards embracing that type of use of SaaS and technology.
Well, David, you're a real thought leader in the industry alone. And thank God you have this company, Better Cloud. Great job. When you think about getting started with you all, how does that look like? What's the customer journey look like?
So usually for the best way to start with us is we usually like to do an assessment for free and, with no strings attached of the environment that people have. We can show people, hey, here are the applications you've got. Here are the exposures you have. Here's how many unused licenses. We can do that assessment. That's usually the most effective and fastest way to get an understanding of where we can bring value into a customer. So that's the best way to do it. I'm always happy to talk, especially from these sessions. I'm always happy to talk to people directly. You can email me at dave@bettercloud.com. I'll get back to you. You can, of course, go to our website and go that way. But yeah, for this community, it's always been, it's a great community. And I always love just interacting directly. So if you want, you can always email me directly.
Awesome. And David, what the industries that you work and play with really well across all industries?
We have about 2,000 customers, all industries, all sizes, all over the world. I mean, the thing for us that matters is you're adopting SaaS, which again, a couple of years ago may have been different. Today, I think that's everyone. So if you're adopting SaaS applications, IT is responsible for them, then you're a good fit for Better Cloud.
Just a point of reference, who are your early backers in your A and your B round? So
the main investors that people would know, Excel, Bain, Warburg Pincus, those are some of the big name investors that people would recognize.
Fascinating. And who do you want to meet mostly in the enterprise? Is it the CIO, the CTO?
It's the CIO, it's the VP of IT. We're starting to see some departments, some companies actually create SaaS ops departments. And so for us, it's always, most likely it's in the CIO's organization. But yeah, for me personally, I love interacting with the CIOs. And I think that just from a mindset perspective, that they're the ones that are trying to drive this empowerment of their users usually.
Excellent. Hey, David, great to have you on the program today. Final comments? Any final thoughts?
I look forward to hearing the rest of this session today. So thank you very much for having me.
Great to see you. Really appreciate your support and engagement. Let's follow up.
Okay, great. Talk soon.
Talk soon. Thanks so much. Next up, we have Lakshmi Hanspal. Lakshmi is the Global Chief Security Officer at Box. Lakshmi, great to see you.
Hey, Hunter. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. I remember when we were last in person at RSA having some coffee, talking about the future role, the role now of the CISO and your point of view on the CISO role. And I was so struck by how innovative and how creative and how much thought leadership that you possess. Where do you think the role of the CISO is today, and where is it going? What's the future look like?
Yeah, great question. By the way, coffee at RSA, Hunter, seems like eons away, right? Seemed like we have to, a memory that was very far away. But yes, hopefully next year we get to have the coffee again. But coming back to the question, I think to think about this question, we need to take a trip down memory lane. And the trip down is like the evolution of the role of the CISO from IT-focused operations to enterprise, to GRC, governance, risk, compliance focused, to product, to platform, to data. Again, this is the memory lane, right? Every single sort of feather in the cap of the expansion of the portfolio. And data security then meant tighter integrations with the privacy aspects, to where it has been for a few years now on the business enablement side, understanding the business domains well, enabling and looking at revenue generation channels and so on. So it's had a tremendous evolution from where it started, and where I believe the legacy of the domain would need to pivot to is anchoring on trust and transparency as two key pillars with which the role can operate, right? So it's more about the legacy being the umbrella or the domain of the trust office, and we're going to discuss that a little bit. But trust and transparency being those, the key pillars with which the role can anchor itself.
Trust and transparency, that's interesting. And talk to us a little about innovation, because right now we're going through such a creative, innovative time, and the business needs some flexibility to innovate.
Absolutely. And everybody in the C-suite role has a role to play in that innovation, and quite clearly in business transformation, acceleration of digitization, or acceleration of decisions, and the operating margins and everything else that's important, right? Including the CISO. I know many CISOs and myself in my role, we're looking at all of this, right? We're looking at cost of operations, we're looking at product enhancements, and we're looking at platform enhancements, including operating in environments like public cloud. So the innovation is never standing still, never standing still moment, and it's going to continue to grow. Hence the the domain, the legacy of the domain needs to pivot towards building trusted products, maintaining trusted environments, and advocacy of trust to customers and partners.
Interesting times. How important would you say your role is with your CIO and with your CEO?
Absolutely. I think it's important as just as another C-suite, and having those bridges built, those conversations earlier than some sort of tactical scenario, some sort of reactive response is very important. And if a company operates as a cybersecurity first company with frictionless security and compliance as a first-class citizen, workflow and automation as a friend and accompanying journey of that frictionless security and compliance, and integration with partners, I think these three pillars anchor any organization to be cybersecurity focused in any climate, right? Whether in the climate that we are in right now or the climate that we'll emerge out in next year.
You know, it must be interesting being at a really a digitally born cloud company, a native cloud company. It must be fun and challenging working as a CISO at Box. You must surround yourself with a lot of experts, that people that know a lot. It's got to be pretty challenging.
Yes, and that's by design. I certainly surround myself with people smarter than I am, so I can learn from them and they can help make decisions as well. But Box in itself is at such a pivotal inflection point with how we've enabled organizations this year to have secure remote work, sustained secure remote work capabilities, and where we are pivoting with workflow and automation and auto classification, everything that could take away from the scaling problems. How do we scale sort of questions that we have in the industry, to how can content work for us, and how can we sustain talent and focus the talent on strategic business efforts.
Hey, Lakshmi, great job. We're going to roll right into the panel here. Stay with us, right? It's the next up is the executive panel, tackling and evaluating future risk. First up is Sharon Sheshman. Sharon is the VP of Systems at Checkpoint Software. Sharon, great to have you on the program. Where are you coming in from today, Sharon?
So today I'm coming from Tel Aviv, and this is my third global meeting today. I started with a roundtable in Singapore, and my noon meeting was in Italy, and this is my third international meeting today.
So this is your really what we call a digital globe trotter.
Sure.
Amazing in one day, right? And the connection is really quite brilliant. You know, when you think of challenges you and your customers are facing in the pandemic, what comes to mind?
Well, there's a few items that come in mind immediately, and others that followed later during the period. Initial requests that came to us were, how do I secure my remote access? How do I secure my remote workers? And enterprises have transitioned themselves within hours and days, and had to secure this transition. So we were helping customers like the largest banks in the world and other enterprise to increase the amount of remote users from hundreds to tens of thousands. Like the largest bank in Europe, we moved from 300 remote users to more than 30,000 remote users in the best security way. So remote access was the first item. The second item was digital transformation, and the acceleration that we saw in digital transformation during the last 9 months was amazing. Most of what we saw were migrations to public cloud. Unfortunately, in that regard, I would say that enterprise took a decision to put business in front of security, and many decisions were made without taking into account securing their transitions. We have seen in the last 3 months more and more enterprises coming to us and asking for advice on how to secure this transition. And I'm happy to say that we're enabling them in this transition. The last point that I would see we saw a surge in is that's part of working from home or the hybrid model, is how do I secure my employees at home? How do I secure employees that use bring your own device solution? And how do I address attacks like social engineering? I don't know who had a chance here to listen to social engineering call, but this is frightening. So these, I would say, are the main issues we've been facing in the last 9 months.
You want to elaborate a little bit more on the social engineering?
Absolutely. I've been privileged to listen to a few of these social engineering attacks, whereby attackers are attacking employees that provide service. So enterprise will publish public phones for services like customer support and sales, inside sales, and others. These would be a target to social engineering attacks using the publicized phone numbers, and the fact that they're not within the regular environment, the fact that they don't have other colleagues around them, made them vulnerable. And it calls for a combination of more education and awareness, but that's not enough. In many cases, you will find that the education and awareness has a lifespan of maybe 2 hours. So whatever you do, you have to also add technology controls to support your employees against these attacks.
Fascinating stuff. The speed that the attackers can innovate at, right, and move the game.
Sure.
Hey, next up is Deb Moreau. Deb's the CIO and RN at El Camino Health. Deb, good to see you.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Excellent. Great to see you.
Great to see you as well.
Deb, what's on your mind relative to your pivot in the pandemic, and where are you now, and what are you focused on going forward?
You know, we are focused on predictive. We would love to know what's going to happen tomorrow and 4 hours from now, 8 hours from now, and 24 hours from now. So we're focusing on cognitive computing, predictive models, all the way from patient information, so that we can arrive at the patient room at the right moment to deal with an issue, all the way to how do we detect and predict pandemic surge information so that we can make sure we have the right resources available. You know, as we're all dealing with surge concerns now, this is becoming more and more important, and I think something we're going to have to deal with on an ongoing basis.
Well, thanks for your efforts on the front line there. That's amazing. And so what's next? I mean, are you modeling? Are you doing prototypes? What kind of innovation efforts are you doing in this area?
Well, as I mentioned, we are modeling for patient information. So we have a deterioration index that predicts the patient's going to deteriorate in a certain amount of time. And we have then care providers arrive at the patient bedside and intervene before some bad outcome occurs. You know, our goal is zero harm to our patients. And so we're focusing not only on clinical outcomes, but as we've talked about cyber, making sure that we're predicting and protecting the organization so that we're not having any untoward safety events. And then, of course, the prediction, we're trying to find a model that really is predictive with the surge for the pandemic. We're working with our Santa Clara County, but there's no silver bullet right now on predictive analytics for surge. And I'd love to have a partner do that and be able to help us with that.
Interesting. You know, Deb, you've always been a great supporter of the HMG network, our summit model in person and now in the digital space. How would you characterize your leadership style and your whole career development, which is a big theme here at HMG?
You know, I was a nurse, so I came from the ranks of first line responders. I think that's so critical to have that background of your business. It certainly served me well as I'm talking to clinicians and doctors and consumers and patients. And as I'm trying to engage patients to be sticky with us, that's been a great background. You know, I think as I think about my management style, I'm all about empowering my staff and those that I work with to be at the height of their capabilities. And I'm excited as we're building our team so that we can focus on innovation and not focus on the day-to-day work as much that will happen, but focusing on innovation.
And what does success look like to you in this environment? It's got to be pretty tough, right?
You know, success is, as I was listening before this session, you know, how do you engage with your customers? How are you at the table as we're having strategic discussions, IT at the table, solving problems, listening to problems, solving them? I guess success to me is we know problems before the call comes to the help desk. And that's what I'm encouraging my team is to round and to spend time with people that are using technology so that they can resolve the issue before it's reported to us.
Awesome. Deb, thanks for coming on the program. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Richard Archdeacon. Richard is the advisory CISO at Duo Security, a great partner of ours. Richard, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I hope you can hear me okay.
When you think, yes, sir. When you think of these uncertain times, what are the key risks CISOs are seeing now in this really changing threat landscape?
Well, I think that there's probably three areas of risk that they're looking at that are quite a bit of a change. And I think Lakshmi's already sort of mentioned the idea of transformation and the speed of transformation that's going on. And I'm seeing CISOs now talk about operational resilience rather than operational risk. There's quite a bit of difference. In the past, we were always put into the operational risk side. If you went into a bank or wherever, they'd put you into operational risk. But now the question is, how quickly can you change your security to move at the speed of business? And that's really what CISOs, I think, are worried about, that they're going to get left behind or become a rigid area within the business. They're used to protecting people as part of the, under the CIA model, being protective. But now what they're trying to do is start to look at how they can be a lot more proactive and predictive about what they're doing. So I think that's one of the big changes. Obviously, for example, we've seen all the change to remote working. I actually was talking to a CISO about this 18 months ago. And what was interesting is that the initiative was driven by the human resources part of the company, who wanted to make life easier for their employees and to protect their human capital. So it was a proactive approach to how do you protect your people within your organization. And I think it was best expressed by a CISO I was talking today to, and he said, you know what, I want to make my organization so agile, will only ever be one step behind the business. And so I think that's what a lot of CISOs are trying to do now. Look at resilience, talk to the business about resilience, how we can open up opportunities, not just about being protective. So it's the risk of failing to change is one of the big changes. In terms of management, I think that one of the big changes that we're having is the explosion of the perimeter. All our data and our applications have gone everywhere. We've already mentioned cloud and so forth and shadow IT. And as another CISO said to me, I'm really happy to protect the organization's data and applications, if only I knew where they were. And that's one of the problems that they're having to deal with. So it's this explosion of the perimeter, which is driven down to the other risk that they're talking about, which is the lack of visibility. They don't know what they're defending because they don't have visibility about it, whether it's a device, a user, an application. So how do they get visibility to know what the current state is? Are we at risk? Is there some risk we should be able to manage? But then also, if we are in, for example, an incident, how quickly can we respond? And how quickly can we make sure that we have all of those devices secured, those users understood? How quickly can we react? So that lack of visibility, which is driven out of this explosion of the perimeter, the loss of control, which is driven by the need to change, the need to transform, the need to have operational resilience. So those are some of the risks that CISOs are certainly talking about at the moment that I found.
Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Thanks so much for sharing that. Stay with us. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Lakshmi, Circling back to you, when you think of your relationship with the C-suite, and specifically with your visionary CEO, Aaron Levy, how did you begin to build real trust and rapport with Aaron?
I think that starts, Deb mentioned it, is understanding the domain really well, right? Walking in the shoes of the domain. So to Aaron, the vision for Box when it started to where it is now and where it is going is very important. And he continues to be a visionary in that space, right? Thinking about the use cases that Box needs to power for customers. He has a very keen ear for customer conversations, and he has a pulse on the heartbeat of the market and the transformations that we need to empower. So he's very connected on that. So in some ways, having a conversation with the CISO, a CISO like that, is easier in the sense that they're very tethered to reality. And so when you connect from a business domain and empowering that domain for our customers, connect with the use cases, and then trust and transparency have always been first-class citizens within Box. So this has made it sort of, a less resistant path to have these conversations. But I can tell you that there's many debate and discussions that go on in terms of what do we do next. In a recent town hall that we had, Aaron asked me, we're coming out of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, right? October. So we had a town hall, a Friday lunch, which is in a company level meeting. And I asked him, I said, Aaron, what are some of the customer priorities that you're hearing? And he mentioned that. He said, sustain secure work. And then how do we transform more of the business processes for our customers? And he asked me a question in return. He said, what is one top change that you would make? And I said, automated response. Connecting to what Deb said on predictive model, what Richard said on operational resiliency, and what Sharon has already touched upon, which is that our boundaries of trust, especially on the endpoints, have already been challenged, have already changed. So when you take that into play, I think the only way to move forward is with equipping and sustaining our customers with automated response on things that they need to remediate and things that they need to act upon to continue to operate in that foundation excellence and hygiene aspect.
Fascinating stuff. When you reflect back on your career, what were the biggest pivot points for you, Lakshmi, in shaping who you are, where you are now?
I think a couple of them as I think back. One is always trying to get closer to the problem, as in the tether to reality, like whether it's that customer conversation or customer support teams or sales operations, like any and everyone that is able to get closer to the challenge, closer to the problem, and closer to the voice of customer. This is always something I've strived for. I think becoming a parent. I tell my kids becoming a parent made me a better leader. I don't know about a better parent because I think in their eyes, I still have a lot of room for improvement. But I think that was one thing pivotal. And just getting into the realm of advising VCs, becoming an angel investor myself, and advising startups and getting on board of directors, all of that, again, not multiple personalities, but just multiple perspectives that can then applied to our day jobs.
Fascinating stuff. You've done an amazing job with your career. So happy and proud to have you here, Lakshmi. Thanks so much for coming on the summit. Excellent. Hey, back over to Sharon. Sharon, you really have a global point of view, not only today, but probably over the past 10 or 20 years of your career. Have we ever seen such a dynamic threat landscape on a global level with nation states?
We've seen this market changing in the last 5 years with the tool sets that were once owned by governments, by the NSA, by other governments, now leaked to organizations around the globe, and suddenly there's many people that can use the tools that were used by governments or by countries, And that has increased the risk factor by few tens of times. So I would say this trend is almost 5 to 6 years old, and the World Economic Forum, which published an annual risk report, has started publishing cyber risk. I think that either 3 or 4 years ago, in the top 3 risks for the first time. So I guess that's a sign to the change that is happening globally.
And what keeps you up at night?
Since I'm in Israel, and there's tens of cybersecurity startups, I have the opportunity to meet a lot of security startups on a weekly basis, and that's one of their first question. And the question is, what keeps you awake at night? And my answer to them is, listen, you need to find a different question. What keeps me awake at night? What keeps me awake at night is if I'm not able to enable the organization fast enough. If as the person who's also responsible for securing my enterprise, whenever I'm becoming a bottleneck, then I'm hurting the business. So that would be my first priority, to enable the company to continue to innovate while maintaining the highest security.
Hey, Sharon, you have an interesting background. You've been in many different facets, many different roles at Checkpoint. You're really a business leader in technology, right?
Yeah, I'm not your typical CIO. I've been doing that for the last 5.5 years, but prior to that, I hold sales and marketing positions and technical positions. I'm still responsible also at Checkpoint for customer support and professional services for the technical aspects of the business. And it's a great opportunity because I understand better my internal customers.
Excellent. How can people get in touch with you, Sharon, you and Checkpoint?
That's easy. That's Sharon@checkpoint.com.
Sharon@checkpoint.com. Love it. Great to have you on the program here. Stay with me, okay? Hey, Deb, back to you. When you think of your stakeholders, what kind of a relationship model do you have with them? How do you build trust, and how do you build that consensus of a shared vision and priorities around the threat landscape or the risk landscape?
It's so important to build that IT governance. I would call it technical governance. I don't even like to use the word IT as much, but it's that governance model. And I have really focused on engaging customers and leaders in that process. So as we think about the strategy of the organization, we put that front and center, and our governance model then looks at every key initiative, and we link it to governance and to strategy. And then we actually rate them based on benefit, risk, and impact. And our business leaders help us devise our priorities. And that's been so important. It goes all the way from just technical projects, innovation projects, all the way to cyber projects. We, of course, every year we perform a risk assessment, we do pen tests, we do all sorts of evaluations, and that builds our priorities as well.
Excellent. And how do you build rapport with the C-suite? Any tips there to be more effective at storytelling, building context, building trust?
You know, I think being present is so important. I'm here in my office. I am here. I've been here every day since the pandemic. And I am, on the hall of the C-suite, and I'm interacting with them on a daily basis. That's so critical. And then, of course, as I said, listening is so critical to the pain points and making sure that you're delivering solutions to those pain points without people having to ask. You're listening, and then you're delivering and executing on those.
Love it. And Deb, thanks again for all your support and being part of the HMG platform. How can people reach out to you and connect with you?
My email is deb_murrow@elcaminohealth.org.
Great. And of course, LinkedIn as well.
Of course.
Great to see you. Hey, back to Richard. Richard, when you think of strategies you're seeing CISOs adopt to really counterbalance this pandemic and the expanded threat landscape, any other ideas about what's really working right now, and a little bit on Duo?
Well, yeah, we've got sort of, there's three areas that I'm finding that CISOs are talking about. For years, I've been talking about something called zero trust, and you were at RSA and everybody was talking about it. But we've been following that for 6 years. And now we're getting people coming and asking me about it. Why? Because they've got all of this explosion on the perimeter. They've got private cloud, they've got public cloud, they've got legacy systems, and they're trying to migrate everything. And so they have to create a framework that will protect that. And what is apparent is that the common area is the endpoint and the user. That's the source of most attacks. That's the biggest risk. And we get the Verizon figures of 80% of all attacks come through that front door. So they're focusing in on this whole zero trust idea, verification of the user, the device, then limiting where they can go to stop the lateral attack, which I know those words, lateral movement, they send every CISO cold with fear because they're the real danger points. The other issue that they're talking about now is more modular architecture, especially around SaaS delivered security solutions, because they want to be able to scale up and down quickly. They want the flexibility. They want to be able to focus their people on talking internally to the business, understanding the policy, understanding the risk. And they want to be able to have that ease of integration, ease of use, clear centralized reporting for compliance, and so forth. And one other aspect which people are now beginning to talk about, which I find quite interesting, is the word culture. It's about the culture of the organization. And all too often CISOs, as I think we've mentioned already, were very technology oriented. They came from the networking background. Now it's how do we change the culture of the organization? For example, if we put in control around the user, MFA and device endpoint control, we're now making the end user the front line in our security. They become part of our security team because they've got to answer questions such as, it is me, I am logging in now. They've got to say, okay, my browser's out of date. I better update it because otherwise it won't be at the right correct level. So we're actually incorporating them into the security team. So culture, ease of use, making sure we work with them, especially if they're working remotely, to make sure that they're part of our team, they understand what we do, and that they value us. So those are sort of three areas. Looking from a strategic point of view, how do we tie it together? Looking at with the zero trust, the modular architecture, the SaaS delivered services, platform and integration delivered, and then this whole idea of culture. How do we focus on the user, make it easy to use, make it easy for them so that they become part of our team? Those are sort of three areas that I think people should be looking at.
Excellent, Richard. In 30 seconds on Duo. I'm a big fan of Duo. I use it myself.
Well, Duo is about defending the organization by looking at the user, looking at the endpoint, and then making sure that you have a segmented approach in so that they only have specifically applications they can use. Huge focus on how do we make it easy to use, how do we make it easy to deploy, and how can we make it easy to integrate? Just to give you one example, we integrated some hospitals recently who desperately needed to move their workers off site, their admin workers. We integrated them and got them up and running in 2 hours. That's the kind of solution that CISOs are looking for.
Brilliant. And how can people get in touch with you, Richard, and someone at Duo?
Well, obviously there's LinkedIn, and we have the Duo website, which is full of information. And my email is rhdeacon@duo.com.
Awesome. Great to see you. Great to have you on the program. Brilliant job. Richard, great job. Sharon, thanks so much. Lakshmi and Deb, really appreciate your engagement, active engagement here, probably in our 30th Silicon Valley Summit in 10 years. Can you believe it? Amazing.
Amazing.
Hey, next up, we have Jonah Kowall, CTO of LogZIO. Jonah, sorry. Excuse me, using cloud SIEM to secure hybrid infrastructure. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Hunter. How are you doing?
Great to see you.
Likewise.
What's on your mind today?
Well, a lot of things. I mean, we build a lot of different products, and running and scaling the team along with our products is front and center for me, trying to innovate in a competitive market and help our customers overcome their challenges.
You know, when you think of SIM, why is SIM so important and so relevant when you think of Logs.io and your go-to-market and how you help your clients?
Yeah, over at Logs.io, we definitely work with a lot of customers, both on the DevOps and observability side, but also on the security side. Largely, the SIM market consists of on-premises legacy solutions in general. And as everyone knows, as we've been talking about for the last couple of hours here even, moving to the cloud is what everyone has already done. So in order to understand the different data sets available and analyze and understand your threat level, your SIM has to evolve. You have to start thinking differently. You have to look at different data sets and data sources. And this is the challenge that organizations are facing today with smaller teams.
You know, how are security teams right now changing their adoption of SaaS in this pandemic environment?
Yeah, I mean, the need for a SIM is always there, but obviously as folks are investing more in cloud services and cloud infrastructure, there are new data sets. So tons of companies implementing Okta, implementing things like Duo that we were just talking about, and obviously the use of Zoom produce new types of data that something has to centralize and analyze so that you can understand the threat landscape that's facing your organization.
And so what really is exposed? What is it that is actually you're protecting?
So in general, we collect the signals coming from these different services and from the infrastructure side. We bring that together, and then we correlate it with known bad actors and threats that are potentially happening. So it helps you understand who's trying to access things that they maybe shouldn't be. If you have foreign or bad actors that are trying to take advantage of your services, get into your infrastructure, get into your your cloud applications. These are the types of things that security teams need to keep front and center because these are the concerns for data leakage and various other thefts.
When you think of the company Logs.io, give us a little background, a little context, who you are, where you're from, how you were funded, and what your ideal client looks like.
Sure. So we are headquartered in Tel Aviv, Israel. We have about 220 people. We're spread around the world, larger office in Boston, and we have an office in London. I'm actually based in Miami in the US. We are funded by OpenView, General Catalyst, Giza, Next 47, and then you'll hear some news next week on that front as well. So we're growing quickly. We have over 800 customers. Our typical customer is generally organizations that are thinking about cloud first. Many of them are cloud native or companies that are born in the cloud. But we have everything from new little startups to huge enterprises that rely on us, to provide them the visibility that they need.
When you think of DevOps and how teams are changing, what do you see in that area? Where's the opportunity or where are the vulnerabilities?
Yeah, it's interesting because I just recently ran our strategic advisory board a few weeks ago, and it was mostly folks in the DevOps side of the shop, but we had some security folks too. But even the DevOps team is having increased pressure placed on them because when the security team identifies a problem, the DevOps team has to remediate and fix it. So there's this challenge where the DevOps team needs better visibility into security, and the security team needs the help of other organizations so that security is front and center in the way that they think and the way that they operate. So this DevSecOps, the idea of this coming together, I think is slowly happening, but today there's a need for better security visibility. We hear it from our customers, even on the DevOps side.
It would seem that it's desperately needed, that kind of collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming. It's super slow because of budgets. You've got a security budget and you've got an operational and development budget, and it becomes difficult, right?
when you think of the whole infrastructure and application layer, application stack, where are the biggest vulnerabilities or the biggest exposure areas, the biggest risk when you look up and down the whole stack? What comes to mind?
So I would say that organizations today that are building new things are often building them on cloud native architectures, Kubernetes, everyone's talking about it, everyone's building on it. The expertise there and the tooling around securing and operating that are still really immature. So people are running stuff in production that's literally not secured at all or not managed properly. And so this is a big risk factor. But at the same time, we all know that legacy is a risk factor. If you're running an old Windows server somewhere, which most companies unfortunately have to, you can't always patch those things either. So I think there are risks in the legacy and there are risks in the ultra modern apps too. But on the cloud, it's really hard to secure stuff. I mean, if you try to figure out AWS security, it's tons and tons of certifications and qualifications needed to do that effectively. It's really hard.
And so you play up and down the whole stack?
Yeah, we do everything in terms of SIM. So we have customers monitoring traditional infrastructure, data centers, factories, various things like that. But most of the customers are coming to us because they're running on the cloud also. So even these manufacturing companies you think of as legacy and dated, they're building new stuff on the cloud. They're going into IoT, they're going into all these new avenues, and they have to secure both sides. And so it's a big challenge, especially if you have older tools that don't scale or don't operate in the cloud environment very well.
I mean, can you take a step back and go up a level to the CEO, the C-suite, the board? And when they think of this new threat landscape, because things dramatically changed 9 months ago, right? What do they need to really know about how dangerous or how vulnerable they are?
Well, I mean, you never know until you get hacked. I mean, security is almost like an insurance policy. You hope you're doing it right so that nothing bad happens. And if you do it well, then nothing bad happens. So that's the unfortunate nature of security. The other thing is compliance and the need for compliance. So we have a lot of new regulations. Regulations are always changing. We provide best practices so that if a company is trying to keep pace with PCI or HIPAA, we create a lot of out-of-the-box content and rules to help them stay up to date on that stuff, because it's really hard to keep track of what's going on with all these standards. And so compliance is another important use case aside from operational security.
When you think, fascinating stuff, when you think of what you all do differently in the SIM area than anyone else in the market, what stands out?
So we build a multi-tenant cloud service, but we also focus on open source. So our entire technology set is based on open source technologies. Which means that we don't have to invent everything from the ground up. We use a lot of open source to build our product, and it's built on top of leading open source technologies. So people know how to use this stuff because open source is more popular than anything else for doing things like log collection and monitoring and observability. And so that's really what we do that's different. We also build a lot of pretty interesting machine learning and AI on top of that, which is unique to our solution and helps identify problems automatically. We take a different approach than many other vendors do in the space. We're not focused on anomaly detection. Instead, we focus on how we can automate what a user would typically do to respond to something. So we take a different approach in our AI and ML. These are all unique things that other companies are not doing today.
Pretty exciting time for you folks, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're growing, we're building. We've got lots of problems to solve still. So it's going to keep us busy for a while.
And a little bit about the culture, fast-paced culture, intense, customer focused.
It's crazy. I mean, I work pretty late, but my colleagues in Tel Aviv are up till 2, 3 in the morning pretty regularly and always available. So we're always working on new challenges, new problems, new products. It's great to see the pace and the level that we're working in now.
Hey, thanks for coming on the program, the summit today. Really appreciate it. Really amazing, a really interesting company, Logs.io.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me on, and it's great to attend.
How can people get in touch with you and someone at the company?
Sure. So LinkedIn is great. Twitter is great. I've got a good following. I used to be an analyst at Gartner. I'm well experienced in this industry. You can also reach me at jonah.kowall@logs.io, just like the name looks. And yeah, happy to engage with anyone interested directly.
Jonah, great to see you. Thanks again.
Thanks, Hunter. Appreciate it. And thanks for having us on.
Take care. Brilliant job. Hey, next up is Marcus Fowler. He's the Director of Strategic Threat at Darktrace, Securing the Future of Work, How Cyber AI Learns on the Job. Marcus, great to see you.
Hunter, always fantastic to be with you.
Tell me, what's new? What's on your mind today? And where you been? Where you going?
Sure. Well, you know, Darktrace, where we've been is leading the field in AI application to cybersecurity. You know, and how we've been proven. I think you know, a great strength test for the technology and our unsupervised learning approach was the change to work from home and that dynamic workforce just 7, 8 months ago that, you know, was measured in hours, not even days. And that unsupervised learning approach adapted with normal and provided that visibility, not only visibility, but also understanding and awareness as it changed without needing to be retrained, relearned, heavy tuning. All of that was really streamless at a time when security teams were hyper taxed in terms of trying to stay on top of where their own businesses were transforming. In terms of where we're going, it's actually a super exciting time to be talking to us because our version 5 is about to roll out, and this is kind of where we lean into our R&D and our innovation over the pandemic as we saw things changing dramatically, and that is bringing more visibility and awareness to that endpoint, ensuring that not only can we 100% deploy in that cloud to deploy those companies that are cloud native, but also more SaaS. We've seen a lot of growing, for obvious reasons, SaaS dependencies, whether that's, you know, whether Salesforce, 365, Zoom, Okta, Duo, all the, you know, just really rolling into those and really making sure we're providing the visibility as users are now more involved in SaaS, and attackers are looking more into that space as well for vulnerability and access.
You know, in the when you think of you know, all of the leaders in the HMG network, some 400,000 strong across the globe, pivoted you know, February, March to really protect this threat landscape. You know, how did you help your clients make that pivot? And when you saw the spike in attacks, how does Darktrace act differently than other cyber solutions?
Sure. You know, I serve as an executive sponsor in that post-sale space. I talk to customers constantly. I run tech meetups for our customers. It's a very active community. It's got a great culture around it. We ran an innovation summit just recently, kind of showcasing some of the things we're doing for them. It was like 700 to 800 customers were attending. I think it may have been even greater as we add in EMEA and APAC. But when it came to what was happening with the pandemic, the first thing we did was provided proactive threat notification to all our customers as an additional set of eyes, an additional layer of support to them for 90 days. So that's our 24/7 SOC to alert them, because we knew there was 100% distraction. The next thing we did is, where has the visibility pivoted? And, you know, are we still seeing that great telemetry, or do we need to make sure we're integrating with that VPN you're now bringing online? You're more dependent. Do we need to lean into more, have that client or endpoint sensor available? So that was another big one. Then you take something like more recently, when you had the ransomware spike events against healthcare and hospitals, reaching out to them and saying, hey, these are our ransomware models. This is how we use things like autonomous response to, you know, disrupt ransomware in its earliest seconds. You know, let's make sure you understand everything you need to know to ensure that you're able to act quickly against and on those models and those breaches when they're linked to any type of ransomware event. So really a lot of communication, a lot of outreach, a lot of expertise to pull from. You know, we're very active with our customer base in terms of what their needs are today, because as you've heard throughout the day, it's evolving, right? And I want to make sure we're securing them today, but also wherever they're headed, right? Whether they're leaning more into cloud and they're going that direction, or they're bringing new SaaS and you want to integrate in, or maybe they want to think about containers and how we're providing, more visibility into Kubernetes or Docker, or what specific unique models or threats we might be worried about in that container space.
Are you seeing any changes with budgets going into 2021 and how your clients are reacting?
Well, it's such a mixed bag in terms of how customers are their reality, right? Their industry reality associated with budget. Is it on freeze because they're still kind of making their way through? Are they throwing more money into security because that's where they're headed? Is it really restricted? For me, the word is integration, and how you're bringing more value across many things. How are we spreading that wallet? I'm starting to really pivot my thinking away from a tool stack, where I think of things as kind of sitting on top of each other, and more of a security machine in which more things should be bringing value and collaborating with other components, right? For Darktrace, bringing that AI machine learning brain, but also bringing that so that I can interact and I can bring data, not only bring data, but act at something like your Palo Alto firewall, something like your endpoint if you're looking at CrowdStrike. How can we really bring more value and collaboration as a security machine, rather than simply things that are stacked or niche tools that don't collaborate?
When you think about that, right, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more we, and that's exactly, when we start talking about integration, and I mentioned the Innovation Summit, we had this great chat going. I mean, they're like, we want you to integrate with this. What about this? I mean, just a lot of great voices, because again, they want Darktrace to be a core product, but they want to make sure that everything else they have, in that solar system is working together to a greater kind of security stance.
When you think of your learning AI model, talk to us a little bit about that technology. What makes that so uniquely different?
Sure. And certainly it's fair to say that the word AI gets thrown around. We're really talking about that narrow application of AI, and we've applied it in really three kind of core ways. One is that unsupervised learning approach. So that means it doesn't require an external training data set. So that's that visibility. It's going to go and learn your digital environment, because our value proposition, our security proposition is, I want to understand and enforce normal, right? I want to be threat agnostic is my position of strength, because predicting threat actor with any certainty and consistency is going to be incredibly difficult. The next application of AI is really thinking about how we augmenting that human team. We talk about technology from a security standpoint, from an alert standpoint, but how are we supercharging and alerting, that human team? How can we help them? And really here we have provided a supervised learning approach. So we watch our own analysts over 4 years at this point, tens of thousands of triage events, and created an autonomous triage capability in the background, kind of a second order AI. This allows those human teams to be starting, 30 plus clicks, 30 plus minutes into every investigation, because they're bringing up the AI analyst. It's provided kind of a narrated assessment. It's done that early heavy lifting of an investigation. So the teams are being more efficient with their time, that critical human resource, right? That you rely on so heavily. You want them doing that threat hunting, that niche work. You want to maximize the efficient use there. And then the last application of AI really associated with autonomous response. And I think it was Lakshmi from Box who talked about how critical autonomous response is, and that deep learning AI and being able to identify a threat and then stop it in its earliest seconds, right? And by stop it, go back to enforcing normal, right? I want to make sure business operations continue at pace, but I want to quarantine and I want to hold off that malicious anomaly until someone has a chance to investigate it. And I don't want my security team to, when they finally get to that, approach a burning building. I want them to approach a minor incident they simply have to quickly resolve.
Marcus, it's always refreshing to get your point of view. And I think Darktrace is really certainly a top pick by HMG strategy. And thanks for really jumping out front with Nikhil and being a founding partner with the HMG marketplace.
Oh, we love it. I think you have a fantastic community. I mean, I try and get to as much of the talks as possible, and you're always kind of changing out the voices that we hear and great perspectives. I've been really impressed in terms of how you just not only evolved, you're to this platform, but also, moving the conversation beyond how's everybody doing post-COVID, or how's everybody responding to COVID, to how are we leaning into the future? What's next? What are we looking for? And I think that's critical, that the narrative continues to move and the conversations continue to evolve, because that, everything else around it is. So we should too.
How about this? Final comment, Marcus, tips on getting strategically aligned with the CEO and the C-suite and building that rapport and storytelling and trust?
Sure. I mean, and we're actually really paying a lot of attention to how we're thinking about executive reporting that's easily accessible through the user interface, for either arming that CISO or arming that CIO in that conversation. And I think it is really about not just showing, this many things were blocked or this many, but really how, completing the story in terms of what could have happened, but also what cycles are we saving with regards to augmenting the human team? Is there FTE savings there, right? How else are we bringing value to the company beyond just better security? While that is critical, the story and the discussion and the co-conspirators, if you will, in the room, whether they're legal or compliance or this and that, and how, all the different ways where you're bringing value, even just to something like visibility for the infrastructure team, right? I think it really is a diversity of languages that a CISO needs to understand in order to kind of really show the whole room, the whole C-suite, all the different areas where value is being brought.
Excellent job. Brilliant, Marcus. Any tips on how to get in touch with you? How can people get in touch with you and folks at Darktrace?
Sure. Personally, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so people can find me there. Welcome to email me at marcus.fowler@darktrace.com. With regards to Darktrace, we're very active in the marketplace. We love to see people go to that space and check it out. Also darktrace.com. I mean, I like to say we have like a Library of Congress full of white papers, and we probably have, Star Wars level movies in terms of webinars and engagements. And we have a really, really strong and fantastic kind of subject matter expert team, from seasoned CISOs to pen testers to analysts. I think it's a really great team that we bring in a lot of that in our webinars and in our community engagement.
Marcus, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Honor.
Take care. Hey, next up we have Crisis in Career, preparing for the next opportunity. I see there's a pop-up poll here. What specific threats are you facing in your environment? If you could vote, that'd be great. Back to the career session, preparing for the next opportunity. Well, how about building your brand to be a talent magnet, recruiting, retaining, and growing people? We have 3 world-class experts here. I'm going to tee up first up, Mark Polanski. Basically, Mark's senior partner of the technology practice at Korn Ferry and a great friend. We've been working on the whole career ascent panel for some time. Mark has done and Korn Ferry's done a lot of study around the whole idea of the disruptive leader. Or maybe I'll throw it over to Tony. Tony, why don't you kick us off? Why does leadership matter more now than ever?
Great question, and thank you. Nice softball for me to hit. I think the leadership agenda has changed dramatically because of COVID. Previously, top-down worked, but it's gone away because no one knew the answer. And now, I think the leaders really need to balance 2 things. That openness, transparency, humility, vulnerability, real authenticity, balanced with delivery and performance. And how do you do that? People used to think, to have performance, you've got to tell people what to do. So the balance of those 2 things within a milieu of an incredibly fast changing world where people have to be bold and brave and big thinkers, I think has really changed how leadership needs to function. And that's kind of my opening statement. We can unpack it a little bit, but that's my quick view on the world.
Excellent, Tony. Great job there. Hey, Catherine, great to have you on the program. Really appreciate it. Catherine is the technology partner and head of the U.S. diversity practice at Odgers and Bernstein. You're busy right now, aren't you?
We're busy, yes. I get calls on everything that needs diversity, and I think that's every single search right now.
And what are you seeing out there?
So a lot on, let me kind of take you through diversity. There's a lot that we can do. For all of you that are looking for diversity in your organizations, it's not just the candidate pools and getting more candidate pools. and changing your spec, but it's how you run the search to reduce the unconscious bias so that more of those candidates are going through, but then also setting up an inclusive organization so they stay. So we're working with a lot of clients on how do you get this talent into the organization and get them to stay.
Excellent, Catherine. And industries that you're seeing a lot of activity in?
I work in the technology industry, but I think it goes across every industry. Our financial services is bringing me in. They're all talking about it. I work in academic and healthcare. So all of those searches, diversity is a huge element of those as well. So I've got some big CIO searches in those spaces right now.
Excellent stuff. Hey, Mark, back to you now. When you think of the disruptive leader, I know Korn Ferry Institute has done some landmark work around the disruptive leader. We probably have never gone through a more innovative and disruptive time. Could you care to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so thanks, Hunter. Appreciate and happy to be here. And I think I got my camera problem solved. We all know that the last 6 to 8 to 9 months have been incredibly life-changing. And so we sat back and said, okay, what is changing in fact? We're disrupting companies, we're disrupting business models, we're disrupting entire industries, but are we disrupting ourselves enough? Or are we victims of our own past? Are we victims of history? Are we victims of legacy? What's going on here? And so our research has been all around disrupting oneself, which means adapting, changing, being agile, being open, and being receptive to new ideas and finding those new ideas.
We actually published a report on disruption in leadership that came out in March. So it was done pre-COVID. So we looked at what was changing in leadership pre-COVID and then post-COVID. And of course, it was done around disruption because of advances in technology. But after COVID, the reasons why there was disruption changed. So advances in technology became number 5. And the things that leaders were looking at were resetting the strategy, the evolving business models, changing customer expectations, and greater collaboration. So all of our CIOs that are on this panel or in this program are probably dealing with all of those, plus the advances in technology.
Spot on, Catherine. That was my next question. Having introduced the idea of disruption of oneself, of the CIO, Catherine, those are wonderful examples. Tony, what are you seeing that's different now?
Yeah, I think that I think to be a better leader, you often have to be a better person. So if you're not working on yourself, I think that's going to be a problem, because if you're not changing, you can't just expect everybody else to change. The other thing that I think is important for us to think about is that often we measure effectiveness based on ROI, but I think society is changing dramatically, and we need to have better methodologies to measure success than just like, is this profitable or not? Because societal advancement now is part of everybody's bailiwick. And Kathy just mentioned this, you know, D&I is really, really important because that's part of the societal agenda that I think everyone is leaning into. And so measuring the impact of technology on the society around use of data, impacts on people, yeah, I think all of us, and you know, I think Lakshmi mentioned being a parent. I think all of us can understand the impact of technology on our children and future generations. And I think our understanding of our impact as leaders on the teams and those around us immediately is important, but our understanding of the impacts that our organizations have on broader society, I think, is increasingly important.
Well said, Tony. Of course, the transformation and the shift from solely shareholder orientation, shareholder benefit, to stakeholder benefit, and stakeholders including the world at large and including societal issues, not the least of which racial injustice and fairness and equity. And gosh, what a wonderful election outcome from that perspective. I'm seeing the fact that it takes a different kind of manager today
someone, Tony, to your point, who relates better, who is more empathetic. We're hearing the same words now. And so my new favorite interview question is, what did you do during the war? Meaning, what have you done for the last 8-9 months? How have you optimized your team's performance? How have you communicated with them better despite distance? And those kinds of questions. But our tip, and you and I have discussed this before, Tony, and Catherine, I'm sure you would say the same, is be prepared for the interview question, is how did you navigate? How did you make things better in the last 9 months?
You know, Mark, thank you. Great points. And if I can add one thing, my new favorite question is, how are you creating psychological safety for your team and your organization? Because if you look at team dynamics, creating psychological safety is almost paramount now. And what do I mean by that? It's allowing people to put their ideas forth, allowing them to take risks, allowing them to fail, allowing them to challenge, allowing them to take risks without penalty, and encouraging them to do so. And people give more, people do better under those circumstances. So I think everyone needs to be saying, how are you showing up for your team? How are you creating psychological safety for your team members?
Catherine, how are you delving into that space?
Yeah, what I was going to say is, it goes beyond just looking at the required skills. When we're doing searches, there's the check mark, the background. But the other is this right values, the right mindset, the ability to drive change. And when I looked at across the last, 4 or 5 searches, what were the competencies? So here's a clue for you that when you're doing searches for inclusion, you have to drive it around those competencies. One of the biggest competencies was leadership. How are you communicating with your team? How are you leading your team? What are you doing to set the culture around inclusion for your team? So it's all of these things that are tying into, the questions that you're asking about the war and, what have you done for your team during this time?
Exactly. And so just another word about the introduction that Hunter made about self-disruptive leader. There's a lot of research that was done last year and more this year. It's all available on the Korn Ferry Institute website, which is free. It's a nonprofit that does this research, not only for us to include in our own products and services, but it's available to everyone. And the key here is all the things we've talked about around agility, and the ability to respond to the board, let's say, or the market, or to sniff out new groundbreaking ideas on products and services and how to go to market. It really has put a spotlight on the great leaders. The great leaders to us are more obvious this year than they've ever been before. Have you found that to be true, Catherine?
Our study is so funny that we both have studies on disruption and leadership right now. So our study also pointed out that only 15% of companies were confident in their leaders to manage through disruption. And the things that are going on right now, we're in this reset mode. Well, hopefully we're past that. And after reset is transformation. So you have to have the skills and mindset around strategic thinking and adapting, inclusive problem solving, and how do you create value for the future. So it really is this transformational mindset that we're looking for.
I hope everyone out there is jotting down those key words like inclusion and disruption. And there's 100 gems that just came from this group. Tony, you were going to add something.
Yeah, the point really is jot down the words, but don't just act it out because it's on a piece of paper. It's got to be authentic. People will sniff you out in a heartbeat if you're not completely authentic in how you behave and how you act. So absolutely, Kathy and Mark, those are brilliant points, but it's got to come from inside, And my passing shot, to quote David Bray, who Mark and I listened to yesterday, be bold, be brave, be benevolent. I think those are good watchwords for all of you to have.
Love it.
Let
Brave,
me
benevolent,
I wanted to add something, because part of the questions, the one question, I'm kicking off a big CIO search tomorrow, and all of our candidates are going to have to prepare a statement on what are they going to be doing to take forward the mission for diversity and inclusion in the organization. It's going to be a written question input from the candidates to, that they need to prepare. So what are they doing to drive that forward? So there's a lot of new in how we're transforming.
I haven't had that before. I haven't had written prepared questions.
You're
Tony,
going to add that now, aren't you?
It sounds like higher education, which is crazy about that kind of stuff. But yeah, sometimes people are asked to do that. My concern with that is you get like a book learning, and I prefer, theory and practice, what are people doing rather than what are they pontificating on, which is where the authenticity comes. But I'm sure Catherine will be able to sniff that out, being the experienced search executive that she is. But Mark, thank you for stepping in and facilitating us. Really appreciate it. We're probably at the end of our time. And thanks,
Almost.
Catherine.
I have one more point I'd like to make and get your opinion on.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there, you're listening to three headhunters talking about transformation, self-disruption, and all that. Where do you start? And we think we have a good suggestion because that's a practical takeaway. And the suggestion is focus on your own agility. Agility being openness of your mind, openness of your heart, to your point, Tony, openness to ideas, openness to people, openness to different kinds of people, different kinds of ideas. And I could go on and on. But here's the key. Agility is not a skill. Agility is a mindset. It's a behavior. And so we can't just read it and repeat it and try it and repeat it like a piano lesson. It's not a skill. It's a perspective. It's a behavior. It's a mindset. And mindset is what your DNA is telling you, what your experiences are telling you, what all the things that came into forming you, who you are, have influence. So one needs to be consciously working on agility and not saying, of course, the classic was, well, we've never done it that way, but the modern cases of other people falsely influencing and persuading, and our own ability to think it through and influence and persuade. Tony, final comments?
Great comment, absolutely right. How do you get that openness? Well, thank you, Hannah, for this group, but be open to listening to inputs, learning from others. So how are you connected? Who are you networking with? Who are you talking to? Because to be open, you've got to be available.
Yeah. Catherine, you get the last word.
I just wanted to say,
do that.
Here, I'm sitting here and going, I'm listening to what Mark is saying, and he's absolutely right around what you said about agility. I always call it the growth mindset. So how are you learning and growing as a CIO and helping your team lead and grow into that role as well? And then I think Hunter always ends these with, how do we reach each of us? I think we're all out on LinkedIn is the best way to reach us.
Yeah, I would think so.
Hey, Catherine,
all right, well, that's great.
Catherine, Mark, and Tony, thanks so much. Final comment, is it the best time ever to be in our industry? Catherine, you first.
Oh, I love working with CIOs, and I think that what is happening right now with IT and how data is at a forefront is just fabulous. I really do like the data analytics and how it's driving business and business results. So I just think it's super time to be in our industry.
Awesome. Mark?
Well, you know my answer, Hunter. Today is the best day so far, but tomorrow will be a better day.
Awesome. There you go. Tony?
If you like impact, this is the best time ever.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Great to see you all. A signature a session only at HMG Strategy, the executive search panel. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Next up, we have Eric Christopher. Eric's the co-founder and CEO of Xylo. Eric, welcome to the summit and program.
Hi, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Hey, great to see you, Eric. 2020 has been what an unusual, quite a year, right? And SaaS really has come into its own, right? Full on, wherever it is in the enterprise. Give us an update on, from your point of view, on why SaaS matters so much.
Yeah, thanks. SaaS today matters more than ever. You know, the last really decade, we've seen SaaS being adopted in just an amazingly fast rate. This last year, we're seeing it just explode even faster because of the demands of COVID and empowering this remote workforce. So, you know, not just early adopters moving to the cloud, but really now everybody is sort of forced to move to the cloud in a major way. So we're seeing it firsthand. We just in Q2, prior to COVID, you know, even kind of settling in, we saw a 25% increase in our current customers just buying SaaS. So and see kind of how the rest of this year plays out.
Interesting time, right? So there's been a lot of debate around shadow IT, whether it's good or bad. What's your take on it?
I've always think shadow IT is a great thing because I love SaaS. I love, you know, our business is all about helping companies get the most out of their software and make employees more effective and productive. So we think that the sheer opportunity for companies to buy the best tools and empower their employees is better than ever. But it's certainly challenging for IT, to say the least, to manage and create some organization security, de-risking the organization. So I like to think of shadow IT as a place for IT to explore innovation and use it as a good opportunity to empower their company. Some of the themes that the previous session was just hitting on.
So what should tech leaders and the CEO do about shadow IT?
Well, right now, the CIO role is changing very, very rapidly into the business, right? You know, it's moving outside of just IT, about being truly now it's required to be a business partner. So working with marketing, working with HR, working with sales. These are the former culprits of buying, you know, the shadow IT. But they're the ones that are really now becoming the primary software buyer, if you will. You know, things are product led, they're employee led. So IT needs to follow the money, track the purchases, monitor applications and how they're being used. So those are the types of things that, you know, that CIOs need to be thinking about today in a big way.
When you think of a CIO being an effective leader in this kind of a crisis, what comes to mind? You have a lot of clients.
Yeah, I think there's one challenge and kind of aspect of being a you know, having the fiduciary duty to the C-suite of making sure that the company is running effectively and securely. The other right now is having a lot of empathy and trying to help solve problems for employees that are trying to do their work that are in really challenging situations. So I think it's managing multi-hats, not only in function, but even kind of levels of responsibilities, kind of things like that.
When you see a courageous CIO leading in this pandemic, who comes to mind? Any one individual that you want to cite?
You know, I think when you say crazy, you're meaning, you know, hopefully in a positive way.
No, courageous.
Oh, it's okay. So it's crazy. I'm like, I'm staying off record for this.
Courageous.
You know, gosh, it's a great question. Our customer base has CIOs that both are work for cloud-only companies, so companies that were started in the last 10 or 15 years being all cloud technologies, and then some that are more traditional. I think right now, I love to give a nod to Jen Oleksu, who has been a CIO. Her actual title has changed recently, but she has been with Eli Lilly for years and has been a major champion in separating kind of the R&D technology software and then the software that employees are using, and really encouraging the company to think like they are Slack or think like they are Salesforce, and buying the newest technologies and then implementing that for productivity and things like that. So I'd give her a nod as someone that drove a lot of change. Very
cool. You know, when you think of Xylo, and what's really your unique position in the marketplace and the enterprise?
We've come into traditional categories of software like software asset management and security related technologies. We've come in kind of with a fresh look of building technology that's really designed for the subscription economy, thinking about the businesses like marketing and sales buying technology, and being able to give IT tools to properly manage that environment. And so that's been our advantage, is this ability for IT to see out across all departments and all employees as to what tools are being purchased, and then giving the tools to take action and controls for the IT leaders.
So what does it actually look like from a visual point of view?
So from a visual standpoint, think of us, think about logging into a single pane of glass and seeing the applications that not only you manage as an IT leader, but also what marketing's using, what HR is using, how those tools are being measured, are they effective, how much money is being spent in each area. So really having a true command center of the whole business, not just IT.
You know, Eric, the financials really matter, right? And so as you see spending in SaaS increase, how are you seeing the focus around controlling costs?
Well, there's the fact that subscriptions are by nature sort of a lock-in. You know, each year the more you're using more and more. It's like you're at home, right? Every subscription continues to increase as your usage goes up. So I think IT's challenge is not only and a CIO is you think about a lot of the spend now is in operational spend, versus capex. And so now you've got this situation where you've got this kind of a lot of ways what feels like a runaway expense that's just where there's more and more usage, and how do you control that? So it's really important that you're monitoring each and every day the licenses and usage and looking at that on a regular basis to keep it under control.
Okay, interesting. What do you think the future looks like for SaaS management?
I think the future for SaaS management is that it's the idea that control of software, SaaS and product-led purchases has kind of really empowered the business to buy software versus it going all the way, going through centrally through IT. It's been like that for a long time, actually. I think the future of SaaS management is having giving the power of every employee to think like a CIO. To be innovative, to look internally at the technologies that are available, and really, just being able to, to think with the mindset of an innovator, but with the security and the mindset of a CIO. And so think of distributed management across the entire business.
So how big is Xylo now, and who backed you guys originally?
Our backers are venture capital backed company. Bessemer Venture Partners, Menlo Ventures are the two major institution investors that helped us. High Alpha, which is a venture studio that started in Indianapolis, helped launch us, and we're also backed by Salesforce and Slack, SaaS companies themselves. We have well over 100 enterprise companies that use Xylo every single day, and we have just under 100 employees. And now they're based all over the country.
And when you think of that, just one more time, that pain point that you address, Eric, that's so important that Xylo solves is?
We help IT embrace and manage SaaS sprawl across the business, and then make sure that every single license that you buy is being used.
Great. Hey, Eric, how can people get in touch with you and the Xylo folks, the Xylo team?
You can follow our company at @GetXylo. Where mine is at eChristopher on Twitter, or you can find us at Xylo.com.
Great. Hey, great to see you, Eric. Thanks so much for your support.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah, next up we have Chris Gates. Chris is the Group CIO and Senior Vice President of Hosting Services at Allstate. Chris, great to see you.
Hey, Hunter. How are you doing?
Excellent. We've known each other, I think, probably going on maybe a decade. And
yeah, something like that.
Right. You've had an amazing career, amazing success. And now you're at Allstate doing some really cool innovation. And the title of our interview here is the unapologetic innovation, new business models and new customer journeys. Talk us through that.
Yeah, Hunter. I couldn't think of a better way of talking about it than you and I, when we talk, we use the word unapologetic, right? And I tied this together yesterday when I was fortunate enough to be part of your, I believe it was your Cella organization with Dr. David Bray. He talked about, facts do not influence perspective always. You need a more a bigger view of the problem before you're going to get people to move. And sometimes that means you have to be unapologetic and question things differently. This crisis has unlocked that. In our world, being remote and working in all different locations around the world has exposed some of the manual processes that we've had and we've cherished for years in our organization and in our business. These manual processes end up being air gaps and ultimately impacts to our customers who need our services the most. And because we're doing things virtually, we have to challenge the status quo and find ways to use technology differently and be willing to challenge things that have been norms in the past.
Interesting times, right? When you arrived at Allstate, what was it about the opportunity that really caught your eye and your passion? And what have you done with the CEO to really drive an innovation agenda?
Hunter, I was amazed when I met with Tom Wilson, our CEO, and the leadership team, and how they really were putting the first foot forward on technology. A lot of businesses talk about being a technology business. I think every business nowadays is a technology business. But what I saw in Allstate's posture was a really strong commitment to go and really disrupt the insurance industry that they've been an icon for 80 years. And start to get into more contemporary things like being the provider for Uber or being having a very valuable offering in our identity protection and social media insurance programs that we have, things that a traditional insurance company wouldn't typically think about, and quite frankly, couldn't do without technology. So I was intrigued by the opportunity to really do some cool things and have the backing of the C-suite.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. We're all about reimagining and reinventing the customer journey and reinventing new business models, new go-to-markets. I think the future CIO is going to be all around facilitating and enabling and leading the invention of new business models, new go-to-markets.
Yeah, absolutely, Hunter. And I will shamelessly leverage, something that we had fortune of seeing from a McDonald's standpoint and some of the innovation they've driven. And what they did and what we're doing is we're introducing the concept of TQ. We've all grown up knowing about IQ and EQ with intelligence and emotional quotient. TQ, we're branding internally as a technology quotient. How do we educate our senior executives and all layers of our organization in the contemporary nature of what we do and what we have available for us within the industry to make them think differently about how they stitch things together? And I would tell you that, if you've seen any of the commercials lately with our particular brand, you'll see a young lady rolling down the hill with, several layers of blankets on and all kinds of, a beautiful song in the background that you can't get out of your head for a long time. But what that is, it's really a position we're taking around the circle of coverage or the family of companies we have that we can bring together that's unique. It's not just home and auto, it's identity, it's device, it's travel. It's a bunch of things that we can do differently now. And we probably wouldn't have been there without the whole concept of stretching the imagination of the executive and really introducing them to things like, I believe as Eric mentioned, which is the shadow IT, right? Don't shy away from them, right? Those are the people who are ambitious. They have aptitude. They want to be part of change. The more you're able to find those early adopters, get them introduced to a common vernacular, and embrace them, innovation will follow.
You think about that. Let's click down on it one more time. How do you open up the aperture of an executive that might not be open to the future potential of a digital go-to-market, a digital customer experience, a digital completely new business, and a new go-to-market, new revenue stream?
Well, you never let a good crisis go to waste, right? 6 months ago, it may have been a lot more difficult to do that than it is now. The world's changing. Our customer expectations are changing, and we have to change with them. But in order for us to kind of control that chaos, right, to control that energy, we've got to have a framework around it, right? I mentioned the words technology quotient, that we have a common language. But we do things like we start with the end in mind. We start with the outcomes that we're trying to derive. And we use a lot of process mappings to kind of go back into what we call our art of the possible. Let's assume that it's unconstrained. What could the world look like if it was unconstrained? And I knew before you knew that you're getting ready to take a trip. And I'm able to present you with something that's compelling. Historically, that's not possible. But what if it was? And if we have a process and a framework to actually guide that discussion, a lot of firms will talk about design thinking. It's similar. It's just a way to organize chaotic thoughts into a positive outcome. And once you see what it could look like, the art of the possible, Then you go figure out how do you remove the barriers that's going to prevent you from getting there, because you know what the size of the prize is if you're able to change your thinking.
Very cool, Chris. Talk to us about some of the business models that you have actually implemented in the past year using this model and this process.
Well, I mentioned briefly, the partnership we have with some of the gig providers like Uber and Lyft. Providing insurance to a third party, it can be difficult, especially when you're doing it in on a per minute basis. So if you're in a car ride for 15 minutes to the airport, that can be a very difficult challenge. And there's 1,000 reasons why you can't do it, right? There's the regulatory approvals of policies and pricing and everything you need to do. We knew that was going to be hard, but using processes like this allowed us to get to yes quicker. Using processes like this, it allowed us to reimagine how we are doing our claims processing, so that when you're calling Allstate in your time of need and you're talking about whatever happened to you, we're using AI and machine learning to do voice to text transcription, look for patterns, pull insight out of this conversation, make sure that we have it captured properly so that you don't have to call back and repeat yourself 2 or 3 times, which is not unusual in our industry. In our industry, you may have to repeat yourself several times before you actually get what you're looking for as an end result. We've engineered that out, and we've made it a very pleasant experience. And also in the process, we're a lot more efficient and get things done quicker.
Chris, you've been one of our top picks for a long time as a CIO. As I watch your career grow and your ascent, you had some amazing leadership training. How do you look at yourself as a leader now in this environment?
I have been blessed to be part of several great, organizations over time. And I think each one has made an impression on me. And I cherish it. I depend on my network quite heavily to go back and just remind me of when I should get back to my basics. But I think as a leader, it's really taught me to be, show up in a very authentic manner, be genuine, be an active listener, and probably ask more questions than I do answers. Right? I don't have all the answers to the questions, but I do have. I'm surrounded by brilliant people, and if I'm able to extract the right information, we'll all get to the same place at some point.
And that's somewhat up and out and across. What about down? How do you build a culture of a winning team?
Oh, I tell you, this platform we're on today has been a godsend for me. A play on my name, Gates. We got a series called Gate Crasher, where I will randomly show up in meetings. And as you can imagine, it can be quite disruptive at first, but it becomes so fun for me to come in and deal with all levels of the organization and show up in a genuine manner, really just trying to understand what they're doing and learn and listen and offer advice, answer questions. But it makes it so that it's approachable. People don't mind pinging me or instant messaging me and having a question. And I try to say yes to every appointment. If I can pick up the phone and give somebody 10 or 15 minutes of my time and let them go on and do what they need to do, I think it goes viral, and I think they return the favor and pass it on to others who need them to succeed as well.
Hey, Chris, thanks for coming with us to Silicon Valley digitally today and being part of the Cella yesterday. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Yes, sir, Hunter. Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye now. Next up we have our Innovation Accelerator. This is a session you won't want to miss. An inside look at cool new tech and some founders and more mature organizations. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter.
Great to see you all.
Hey, Hunter.
Hey, Glenn, why don't you start off? Glenn Chisholm's the co-founder and CEO of Obsidian Security. Glenn, what was your vision for Obsidian, and where did you see an open space in the whole enterprise architecture security landscape? And what are you addressing at Obsidian?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. So, security needs to empower the business. SaaS empowers the business, creates a fantastic set of business outcomes for the organization. So what we really wanted to do was we wanted to take those SaaS capabilities and empower the CISO's team with the tooling around protection, detection, and response, like the core fundamental capabilities that any modern security team should have, to allow you to do that sort of detection and response model, the threat hunting model in the SaaS space, to secure SaaS for the enterprise, and to make the enterprise really be able to utilize SaaS to its highest capability, but be compliant, secure, and safe, and maintain privacy.
Interesting times. And how's client adoption been? How is it in your go-to-market? Happy clients?
Happy clients, interested clients. I mean, we've got a combination of people that have the SaaS veterans, the SaaS newcomers that have been thrown into this mix as COVID's hit, and it's working with this collection of people. And we made sure that we're ourselves a SaaS product, so we're up and running in minutes, operational in hours, and fully functional in less than a day.
Excellent. Thanks, Len. We'll circle back to you in a minute. Next up, Snehal Antani. Snehal, welcome to the program. Snehal is the co-founder and CEO of Horizon 3 AI.
Yeah, Hunter, great to see you guys again, and great to talk to the audience. So things are going well. So the problem that we're trying to solve at Horizon 3 is attackers know more about your environment than you do. They don't hack in using 0 days like you see in the movie. They log in using valid credentials they've harvested and misconfigurations that they've found. And so our goal was, how do we look at your environment through the eyes of the attacker, identify your blind spots, identify your ineffective tools and processes, and help you focus on fixing problems that actually matter, and shifting to this continuous security assessments model in order to achieve that. Based on your conversations we've had previously, customer adoption is great. Being able to quickly come in a few minutes, run a complete security assessment, identify a bunch of problems that you probably weren't even tracking that could have been exploited, and helping you to fix problems that actually matter. And then watching customers fall into this behavior of run us, find a bunch of problems, they go off and fix it, rerun us the next day to verify that those issues have been fixed. Then they uncover more problems that have been introduced, and they end up in this find, prioritize, fix, verify cycle with us. And with my CIO hat on, I've found this continuous assessments approach to yield the best return on security effort, because you're actually fixing problems that matter.
Thanks, Snehal. We'll circle back to it again in a minute. Next up is Nikhil Gupta. Nikhil is the co-founder and CEO of ArmorCode. Nikhil, good to see you.
Hey, and good to see you again. Talk to the audience again. So at ArmorCode, we are making application security easy. As Chris was mentioning earlier, there's a lot of digital transformation that's happening. People are developing these new applications left and right, but the way the fundamentally applications are written have changed significantly. Like 20 plus years ago, when I was at Bell Labs, I'll have a software release once a year, and then the application security team will come, and then they'll beat the application for 3 months before it gets out of the door. But now with innovation happening like on a daily or an hourly basis, you have releases cycle shorting down from like 12 months to 6 months to a month, or maybe even weekly, and a lot of companies even daily. And how do you secure those applications? That's the fundamental problem we are trying to solve. And if I go and talk to any of the CIOs, and I've been talking to a lot of Fortune 50, Global 5,000 customers, how many applications do you have, let alone their security posture? And everybody's kind of scratching their head. So it's challenges there, and we believe we have a very new innovative solutions of tackling that.
You're pretty early stage, right? Just landed the first round with Sierra Ventures, right?
Yeah, so we started 4 months ago, but we are at a rocket speed. We already got the product out. We are talking about SOC 2 compliance, and though the company is young, this is not my first rodeo. Like, this is my third startup. Been there, done that, and we have been able to pull together a stellar team, and several POCs going on, and we are very excited.
Excellent, thanks, Nikhil. Next up, we have Marcel Shaw. Marcel's the Principal Federal Solutions Architect at Ivanti. Marcel, welcome to the program.
Hi, how are you?
Great to see you. Where are you based today?
I'm in Northern Virginia.
Okay, makes sense, right? When you think of the topic of innovation versus invention, what do you see the differences are, and where does Ivanti come in?
Well, yeah, there's a lot changing, but there's some logistical stuff or some operational stuff that is very important throughout this process. And with the boundaries of the network somewhat changing with the remote workforce, it's important that we adjust to that. And what we do at Ivanti is we will discover, manage, and secure all of your IT devices, which would include the software and the hardware. This is all critical, as I mentioned before. Those network boundaries have changed. We traditionally would go into an office and there was a fence around that office, you could say, because when you're on the network, you could access things you couldn't access at home. With the remote workforce, that has changed. And so we need to, more than ever, make sure that we are identifying what is coming into the network, making sure that it is managed and that it is secure.
Excellent. And what does an ideal target client look like for you?
Well, I work a lot with federal agencies, and the federal government really has struggled over the past with tracking their assets. And it's a lot of that has to do with the regulations of how they purchase. When they purchase their assets, they have to purchase it in a fair way. They have to purchase from small businesses. So those assets come onto the network in many different ways. So you know, the clients that I work with a lot are struggling to identify assets that are not detected, because those are the assets. If we look back at some of the biggest breaches in the past, some of those, the big breaches, I won't call out the companies, but they were from assets that weren't identified on the network, from partners coming in or contractors. So that's where we come in. We help to identify the processes in place that make those vulnerabilities appear. And then we try to, you know, tackle those and make sure that they are, those assets are managed the minute they hit the network and secured.
Excellent. Great. Stay with us. I'll circle back to you. You know, hey, Glenn, SAS has been around for, it feels like decades, right? I think Benioff probably coined the word, or certainly got the word out there. Mark Benioff from Salesforce. Where are the real vulnerabilities or open places within the APIs that really matter, that really need to be taken care of, that some of these big companies just don't really address fully?
So Hunter, I mean, obviously, as Benioff brought this model to market, what got created was the shared responsibility model, where the SaaS provider says they're gonna undertake certain activities, they're gonna perform certain functions, and then they're gonna create this wonderful set of capabilities that let you connect other applications to their SaaS application, that let you enable users, let those users share files, let those users collaborate. Once you start talking about everything that the application lets the user do, this is where you need to monitor, have visibility, provide detections, create an incident response capability to understand exactly who's doing what, how are they doing it, and what are they doing with your data. Particularly because, initially we had SaaS maybe maintaining some customer prospect lists, but now you start to think about everything that might be in SaaS. This might be everything from, your clinical research data, to every single customer and every single deal and process, to every single document, spreadsheet, PowerPoint inside Office 365 or G Suite that represents the entire strategy, the entire sort of intellectual property of your company. So as the value of that data goes up, as the flexibility of these platforms increase, the attack surface increases, the number of ways that you can suffer from breaches, insiders, or just inadvertent leakage dramatically increases. And so as those things happen, you really need to think about the security model. You need to be able to think about the protection, detection, and response sort of methodology to get yourself to a safe state.
It really is a huge issue, right?
It's significant. And I think it becomes more significant as you start to think about the quantity of information. It's like, what information do you have that isn't inside your email platform, that isn't inside your Box or Dropbox, or, I mean, obviously we had part of the Box team on here earlier, and no one's questioning the unparalleled skill of the Box team. They're out there protecting the organization. They're out there, providing incredible services, but they also provide incredible capabilities. And so it's that the user needs to take responsibility for their component of this, not just put everything on the provider.
Right. Thanks so much there, Glenn. Agree with you 100%. Snehal, back to you. Pretty creative time, man, and really a creative application that your vision that you have. What kind of traction are you seeing from clients, and you getting a lot of interest?
Yeah. So I would describe, I think, three personas that we end up dealing with. The first persona is, I describe them as the sacrificial CISOs. These are the security leaders that know when they get breached, they will get blamed, they will get fired, and they therefore are stressed out and worried about proving their effectiveness up and out and focused on improving their posture down and in. And those tend to be the most eager at the executive level to work with us because we can immediately help prove their posture, prove their effectiveness, and put them in better standing with the board and the regulator. The second persona that we work closely with, these are companies that may not have a security team or have a nascent security team, but they're really the fixers. These are the people that ultimately have to do the work. And they've got a list of 10,000 things to go fix, but they need to know what the 5 or 10 things are they need to urgently fix right now. And so we end up helping them sift through the noise to fix the problems that matter. To my surprise, and this is in the minority, there are still a bunch of, I think of them as almost like ostriches. These are the folks that they don't want to know about the security problems in their environment, because if they know, they're liable. And they'd rather not run an assessment and therefore keep their heads in the sand. And to my surprise, like, I've had that CIO hat multiple times. I thought that the market had weeded those types of folks out, but to my surprise, there's still a decent chunk, maybe 20, 30% of the CISOs or executives I interact with at very big companies don't want to know about their problems because they want to be able to say, alleviate or allay the blame that would come towards them. So we end up biasing towards the people that actually want to fix things, which is also a great group of passionate folks to work with.
Well, it's fascinating. You really do need to segment the personas, right? And you have an amazing background that led you to this idea, right? So 1 minute on the 3 CIO jobs, the JSOC experience and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a practitioner, right? I was a CIO at G Capital, had multiple CIO roles there in financial services, dealt with regulators trying to explain and articulate our posture up and out. I was then CTO at Splunk, and I got to spend a bunch of time on the road working as a strategic partner to very large forward-thinking security shops and others, and learned a lot about common mistakes and patterns and common areas of success and lessons learned across all the customers we work with. I took a break from industry and served within national security. And within there, I learned a lot about the state of the art with offensive attacks and how nation states behave. And also what it's like to defend some of the most sought after organizations that are trying to hack you. And my stunning revelation on the national security side was attack platforms that nation states use have almost no human involvement. It is almost fully automated, if not starting to become an AI-based war. And what that means is a nation state attacker can make 1,000 offensive cyber decisions in a minute. And if you have human defenders, maybe they can make 1 or 2 defensive decisions a minute. And speed of decision-making is how you win the war. And what I saw on the national security side was robots fighting humans, and the humans are going to lose every time. And that's what compelled me to rethink how we do defense going forward.
Fascinating times. Nikhil, you've been an entrepreneur several times. Any advice for other entrepreneurs?
So basically, the number one fundamental advice that I give to entrepreneurs is that solve a real problem, which is painful. And I'm living example, like I started this company in the middle of COVID, right? So while I could have been doing several fun things sitting outside, but the thing here is when you look at an idea, so start from screening, is it a good to have or a must have? And it's unfortunate, like, when I was used to give this advice like last year, think about the worst thing that can happen in the world, which is happening right now, COVID. And even at that time, if the customer have a pain and is willing to pay, then you know that you stumbled upon the right idea, right? So that's the number one advice. And as I said, that never fails. It may not be cool and sexy, but and we are seeing the fruits of it, right? Like even in this market, going to CIOs and CISOs, including Fortune 500, Global 5000, and when you ask the basic question, and people are willing to open their wallet because you're solving a real problem.
What does winning look like for you in this environment, Nikhil?
So winning at the end of the day, when you're doing a startup, you are doing it for winning. At the same time, talking about solving a problem, but again, the number one thing here is that smile from the customer. Solving a problem for the customer is the big winning for me, right? So as long as you're making customer happy and solving the real problems, as Snehal mentioned, that focusing on the CIOs and CISOs who are out there, who are kind of embracing the change and looking or ready to take the challenges head on, and working with them in a partnership, and getting these new technologies, the real winning.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Marcel, when you think about culture and security, culture really matters in an organization. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when you were sitting at home working, you could probably pick up any device and get it to connect into your network or something like that. So yeah, there is a big culture change. In fact, I think things are going to change drastically after COVID. There's a couple things that come to mind. Really, is that I believe we'll see many companies abandon the traditional office. So where this working from home, I think there'll be a lot more jobs available, and a lot more companies will move to a shared office. And they're realizing that because they've realized during COVID that they can conduct business and get results. Some companies even doing better than they have in the past by working at home. And the other thing I think we're going to see is just travel be eliminated or really cut down, because a lot of things can be accomplished just through video conferencing technology and things like that. So as we move to use more technology to converse and talk with others, we have to practice good hygiene with our emails and some of the simple things that we've learned in the past. But now that we have the users at home, we really have to put more trust in the user at home than we've had to in the past, because then when they were on the network, we could lock them down to what they could do. But now we can partially lock them down, but not fully, because they can get to anything they want really from home.
Marcel, Avanti's been a great partner of ours. What should people think about more broadly across industry about Avanti and how Avanti helps?
Well, there's been some fundamental changes going on the networks. If you remember back, we went from a centralized computing model before cloud, and then we went to distributed computing models, and now we go to the cloud, which tends to be a centralized data center. In fact, in Northern Virginia, there's a lot of them just down the road from me. But now what's happening is, because of this influx of IoT coming on to the network, and I'm sure everybody on this call here has something at home that's not a computer that connects to the network. We have seen a lot more data come onto the network. So the cloud technology, which is really good at supporting the home user, is now becoming much more of a distributed technology. And a lot more of the devices we're seeing are moving to what we call the edge of the network. And so, in that area, we are building out a model just, to support all of these IoT devices and these end users by moving a lot of the processing to the edge of the network, so that the latency issues that you run into when you start sending everything into a central data center are overcome. And this is going to be, this type of technology is going to be great for the end user. It's going to enhance their conferencing, their ability to share information with each other. It's going to be much faster. Augmented reality is going to play a big role. We're using augmented reality today. Look at these backgrounds. I mean, if you saw the background behind me, you'd say, I need to paint my wall. So augmented reality, we may be sitting, and I think I saw a video conferencing tool that lets you all sit in a conference room. It actually looks like you're all sitting in a conference room. So we're going to see some great augmented reality come out. And this is all going to be made possible from the edge. And what we're doing is building to that model, using edge technology to process data, to quickly process data that are coming out from IoT devices, from your non-traditional devices, and not sending everything back to a central data center.
Thanks so much, Marcel. Appreciate it. Glenn, how can people get started with you and reach out to you?
Well, Hunter, we're on the HMG marketplace, so you can go through there. That'd be a great start. But you can email me at glenn@obsidiansecurity.com if that helps. But yeah, as I said, we're on the HMG marketplace. We've been there for quite a while, so would love to engage with anyone on the call that has SaaS. that has security concerns, we're here to help.
Let's follow up one-on-one tomorrow. I actually had a prospect for you, a client in Europe, the Netherlands, wants to meet you straight away.
Love to.
Snehal, how can people follow up with you?
Always hustling, Hunter. I love it. Always hustling. Good to see. So we should be on the marketplace soon. I'm easy to find. I'm not as big a local celebrity as Nikhil is, but we're easy to find through LinkedIn.
Okay, great to have you as well, Snehal. Best time ever to be in tech, right? I have another client in Europe that wants to talk to you. Let's talk soon. Great. Nikhil, good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. ArmorCode.com or ng@armorcode.io. We will be in marketplace very soon as well. So, through any of the channels, we are always approachable.
Great. Let's get into the marketplace. And Marcel, again, great to see you. People can reach out to you directly on LinkedIn and through email.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, marcel.shaw, I have that for Gmail and Ivanti.com.
Awesome.
So I can be reached by email or LinkedIn.
Excellent. Hey guys, thanks so much. Great job. And let's talk soon.
Thanks, Hunter.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Hey, next up, final session, reimagining the business and leading innovation in times of radical change. This is one of our newer sessions, one of our newer titles. I kind of like it. Radical change in radical times, innovative times. Hey, John, welcome to the program. John Abel is the Senior Vice President and CIO at Veritas Technologies. John, what's on your mind today?
Oh, it's great to be here, Hunter. It's the complexity in the world today. Everybody's leaving a much bigger digital footprint. And, there's a lot of people who won't take advantage of that, both good people and bad actors. So interesting times.
To that end, can you give us an example specifically in your organization around change in order to change your changing landscape, changing digital footprint, innovation, and keeping it safe and secure?
Yeah, I think just doing things like this, right? So in the past, this meeting, or any meeting with some of our sales organization maybe and clients may not have been recorded. You wouldn't have known what was going on. And so what we're seeing in the industry is just a massive rise in the amount of data that is now being captured. And as a result of everybody now working remotely, security, we've heard that this morning on multiple fronts, is a big concern. And so, the bad actors, ransomware attack is just going through the roof right now. And we're advising our customers, to have a much more comprehensive, data protection strategy. One thing in particular I've been excited about is, as we move to this remote working, is we started actually using some good AI technologies from companies like People.ai or BoostUp or Gong.io to try and get better sentiment analysis, understand exactly what our sales organization is doing. And so that's been very, very insightful, something we would never have had before in the old way of working. So this new digital footprint that everybody's leaving, we can run analytics on that and see a lot more what's going on.
Excellent. Hey, stay right there. We'll circle back to you, John. Sure. Next up, Jason Beard. Jason's the Senior Director of Data Strategy and Governance at Informatica, great partner of HMG's. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here, Hunter. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. You think about innovation being a priority in every business right now. How do you think best practices or lessons learned around companies prioritizing innovation initiatives and innovation projects?
Well, it's certainly the topic that's on the tip of the tongues for all of our customers, partly driven by just the amount of information that's available to drive innovation. Certainly a big part of it. And getting your hands around where the opportunities lie and how best to quantify those, how best to arrive at the optimal program for innovation, because there's obviously limited resources that can be expended on those areas. It always starts with the customer, though, and this is what I advise my clients when we think about how to best structure an innovation program. Let's think about what that customer journey looks like and where you can have the biggest impact on customer experience as a good starting point. There's also a school of thought around innovation strategies that really thinks about segmenting your total portfolio along the lines of what's the stuff you need to do right now because there's a huge opportunity in front of you. So the fast lane kind of projects, perhaps a slow lane set of projects that are going to pay dividends over time and transform your business in a different way. And then, of course, that set of things that you want to stop doing. So what are the types of activities that just aren't adding value any longer given the state of the industry?
And Jason, a little bit about Informatica.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, Informatica, our business is data. So we operate the most powerful integrated data platform that supports customers in all industries. We obviously have a lot of customers in big data-centric industries such as healthcare, financial services, public sector. But we manage huge amounts, zettabytes of data through our platform every year. And that number is growing constantly. It's really all about defining, classifying, discovering, managing, integrating your data so that you can support the kind of innovation that needs to happen in today's market.
Great job. We'll circle back to you. Thanks, Jason. Next up, Scott Strickland. Scott's the EVP and CIO of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. Scott, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Hunter. Thanks.
Yeah, Scott, you've been busy. What an amazing time for the hospitality and resort industry, right?
It has been. It's been the worst of times. You know, to misquote a famous novel here, if we go back to March and April, it was really tough in travel and hospitality. We've seen some light recently as people start to get back on the road, but with the upticks right now, we remain cautiously optimistic.
Did your leadership style change at all during the pandemic?
Absolutely. If we go back to that March, April area, you know, hospitality was dramatically impacted. And as such, we had to make some tough decisions, you know, and I had to say goodbye to some teammates. As part of that, it was a classic reorg. And whenever you have a classic reorg, you need to re-engage with the people that are still in the organization. You know, so you need to find frequent touch points, informal touch points. Tell people that it's okay. You're still going to have a role in the org, and here's what's expected. You know, what is everyone's new role and responsibility, and how are they going to fit? And what we found actually, and what I found is getting back to that triage, that urgency has helped. It's helped us build, maintain, and grow a lot of those relationships that for a while, you know, we didn't quite take for granted, but we maybe put them just on a level set.
You know, what type of innovative solutions were you able to deliver or implement during the crisis?
You would think that because of the adjustments and being in hospitality, that we would have just gone into a bunker mentality mode. You know, we would have just pulled back. And the opposite was actually true. Our CEO looked at this and he said, what a great opportunity to listen to our customers. I love what you said, Jason. You know, let's listen to our customers and what are our customers asking for? And what we found, of course, guests at that point are looking for contactless solutions. You know, help me check in and check out in a contactless way. And we have 9,000 hotels worldwide, and many of them are economy branded. And for us to bring a contactless mobile check-in solution to a Days Inn had never been done before. And so we worked very, very hard on that for about 4 months and were able to deliver it. You know, another example would be we had new cleaning protocols for our franchisees. A housekeeper maybe had been cleaning a room the exact same way for 20 years. Now with COVID, you're cleaning it in a very different manner. We pushed those new cleaning protocols out on the mobile devices. So the housekeeper staff could look through and check off and say, oh, I remember I need to give them some hand sanitizer. I've never done that before, but I need to leave that in the room now for them. So it was fun actually to be able to quickly deliver some of these solutions that might have been on the back burner and that we hadn't prioritized before.
Scott, you always seem to be a great communicator, a passionate person, someone who really loves what they're working on and doing. You have a great relationship with your CEO too as well, don't you?
We do, absolutely. It's great because we earn that seat at the table, and every day I try to remind him why I'm there. You know, and why ultimately our organization is there. Here's the value we delivered. Yeah, we did that yesterday, but what are we doing for you tomorrow?
Great stuff. Thanks for being here too, Scott.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Rahul Tripathi. Rahul's the CTO, Customer Success and GM, Worldwide Professional Services of Nutanix. Nutanix is a great national partner of ours. That's a big role, Rahul. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Great, glad to be here.
Yeah. Hey, what are you seeing from your customers in terms of leading change in these unprecedented times?
So Hunter, it's been very interesting that we have heard about digital transformation for many years, but Probably not a good thing, but COVID did more to digital transformation than we ever did in the last decade or so. Because what I've seen is in the last few months, a lot of changes that people want to do for a long time, whether they were school districts. So we had a customer in Florida, they had to go from a few hundred students to millions of students in just under 3 months. So all the virtual desktop technologies, we had airlines based out of Asia that had to really scale out all access to their employees with virtual desktops. So I think what the scale we have seen happening across our customers, some of the pharmaceutical customers, they are building the vaccine. They had to scale out infrastructure without anyone able to go into the office. So the automation, the cloud infrastructure, the agility, the things that we've been talking about for a long time from a disruptive technology perspective, in the last 6 months, I've seen them adopted with more pace than ever before.
And any surprises in the work from home environment and how you've helped your clients accelerate their digital agenda?
Yeah, I think they've been a big surprise. So as part of my group, I also not only kind of advise customers on transformation and their digital journeys, but we also have people that help them achieve that. And there was an age-old disconnect where like we said, okay, we can do all of this remotely, but the customers would say, no, I want somebody to show up because I want to see the person. And now suddenly what we are finding, the biggest surprise is that now that not only the customer people are working remote, but they're able to achieve a lot of these outcomes without anybody sitting or kind of setting foot in the office. So that's been the big surprise and these are for seemingly slow moving industries, whether it is public sector, pharmaceuticals. What we are finding that people can do a lot more than they ever thought.
Yeah, makes sense, right? A crisis brings around opportunity. What did you seize on in this crisis to help advance your organization's agenda?
Yeah, so as the Nutanix, some of you may not know, but we are like a 10-year-old startup. So the company was founded on building an invisible infrastructure based on software-defined principles to run applications rather easily. So that's that agenda has always been an insurgent agenda around modernizing the infrastructures that has had happened before to now like how the likes of Google, Facebook's run their data centers. And now we are finding a lot more agility amongst the customer to adopt that agenda that helps serves as well. And also from a public cloud perspective as well, I think the mission is almost jointed there as well, that how can we help people leverage public cloud better as well. So we have found our business to be quite positively impacted by some of these changing amongst our customers.
Excellent stuff. Thanks, Rahul. Hey, John, you think about the digital transformation pre-pandemic and now post. How has it affected your priorities, and what are you getting accomplished now that you wouldn't have been able to get done before?
Well, I think Hunter, pre-pandemic, everybody who had their digital transformation journey mapped out and they were progressing that. We've just seen it's been expedited, beyond anyone's imagined dreams. We actually had some customers of ours that were, on their cloud journey. It was a big part of the digital transformation journey. And they had a 3-year plan to move a lot of stuff. And as a result of just basically not being able to put people in data centers anymore, they shortened that program from 3 years and squeezed it into 3 months. And albeit painful, but that happened. And then just internally at Veritas, we were trying to do things. Over the last 2 years, I've been an advocate of, hey, people, if you're not in the conference room with the rest of us, use video, right? You just get on a video call. And reluctance, right? 30-year-old company, not a lot of people kind of wanting to get with the times. And all of a sudden, pandemic, boom, everyone's on video now. So it's been an interesting time. And certainly, I think, as I mentioned before, about just companies are seeing this explosion of data. We heard it from Scott, and our customers are on these digital transformation journeys. We serve a lot of the banking industry. We serve a lot of the healthcare industry. And obviously, healthcare has gone through their challenges, just massive demands on them. And they've had to do things about how they capture data. And then equally on the banking industry, not a lot of people going into branches anymore. And so a lot of CIOs at our biggest accounts are heavily focused on how do we do more digitally and, expediting enhancements to their mobile apps and things like that. So I would say the biggest thing is speed, just the speed of digital work across both inside of Veritas and with our customers has increased significantly.
Speed really matters, right? Certainly in a crisis.
Absolutely. Nothing like a good pandemic to boost your business.
Fascinating, right? Hey, Jason, when you think of Informatica and you think about your unique position, right? And really, we know data is the new oil that really moves the world. Your business must be booming.
Yeah, we're doing very well, and we get a lot of calls from customers who are trying to get their arms around how to make the best use of their data to drive innovation, to transform their operations, to serve their customers better, to develop better products. An interesting statistic recently from an IDC survey: 70% of organizations have some sort of a data initiative in place to make better use of their information, but only 50% of the data is actually being used in those organizations. So if you think about how much information an organization has available to understand its customers better, to develop better products, if you're only using 50%, you're really missing the mark. You're missing a huge opportunity there. So the way our platform supports improving that situation is by helping customers discover the information they may not even know exists. I talked with a CIO recently in a customer that I'm working with, where he's still finding HR systems he didn't know existed. And he's about a year into his job as the CIO at that company. And so when you're in that kind of a position and you don't know all the systems you have or the data that's out there, that's not a good place to be. So our platform really facilitates the discovery of those data assets and helps us make sense of them to drive the innovation that needs to happen.
So there's a strategic layer on top of, not only of the technology, but there's a strategic service, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
What's that journey look like?
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
What's the strategic journey look like when you engage with the client, helping them, manifest a new vision?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, for us, it all comes back to understanding what their business is and what they're trying to achieve vis-a-vis their customers. So we don't go into it with a solution in mind. We always start an engagement or a conversation with a customer, focusing very much on what are the business drivers in your industry? What are you trying to achieve? Let's talk about your strategic plan. What is your 3 to 5 year objective around your business? Where do you see the innovation happening? How is your industry transforming? And that's really the place where you start to understand where the data that an organization has or maybe needs to acquire can support that future vision.
Excellent stuff, Jason. Thanks. Hey, Scott, when you think of your learnings from this new reality, or what people call the new normal, what are you taking away, and what are you implementing in this as business really starts dialing up?
Like they said, never waste a good crisis. Absolutely. So the first one, and I'll springboard off of what Jason said, is we found that data is the dirt in which the business grows. You were speaking about it.
I like that. Can I use that?
You can use it, Jason. Go for it. Because as we went into the crisis, every day, every week, we were looking at what's the occupancy at our hotels. Are we trending up? Are we trending down? Are the geographic adjustments? And having that data at our fingertips. And we would sit around the table, the 8 leaders in the company would sit around the table every morning and say, what should we be doing? How could we be helping our franchisees or our guests more based on what the data is telling us? And we're a customer, please customer, thank you. We have 500,000 people roughly checking in and out of our hotels every day. We have 80 million loyalty members. So we're moving that amount of data, joining it and conjoining it and figuring things out and pulling away insights every day. So that was a key learning for us. We've become much more data driven as an organization. The second is we're moving faster. As John said, speed is absolutely critical. And as we reorganized, we said, how do we take this operating model and ultimately institutionalize it? We have a stand-up call as a leadership team every morning. Most of the time I have a cell phone call with the CEO in the evening too. Okay, well, how do we operationalize that so we can continue to act like a startup? We've been around for 50 years, but if we can continue to have this urgency and this excitement across all levels of the organization, that's only going to make us stronger. So those are the 2 aspects, at least 2, that we want to carry forward into our culture.
Hey, Scott, it sounds like you have an amazing relationship with your CEO. So he's very involved with shaping the digital agenda, the digital vision, right?
He is actually, and the crisis helped demonstrate to him and to the rest of our leadership team, it's one thing to say you're in the cloud. It's another than when you walked off campus on March 13th, for people still be able to access everything they needed, for all the drives to still be up in that cloud environment, for the security solutions to still work, even though you weren't on network, quote unquote, but you were using cloud security, so it didn't matter. You know, people saw that manifested, and so suddenly our ability to continue to make investments can increase. You know, we have work from home phase 3 that we're implementing right now, which is going to entirely get rid of VPN for us. We'll be a VPN free shop, which is pretty exciting, you know, for a 50-year-old old school sort of company.
Thanks, Scott. Good stuff. Really cool. You know, Raul, back to you. When you think of technology innovations and disruptions coming down the pike, what do you see and what should be on a radar screen?
Yeah, so I think on the technology side, I clearly see this collaboration tools evolve in a whole different way, because I think what the collaboration tools of today, like Zoom and all, they offer is a more structured way of collaborating, but the impromptu kind of engagements and running people in the hallways, those are missing. So either these tools will evolve, or the likes of Slack and others will figure out a way where you can quickly kind of dial in, talk to someone over video and then dial back in, or you can put something on hold and still talk to someone like you were sitting in your office and somebody knocks on your door. I think those are not replicated. Even the whiteboard, for example, in some of this is very, very weak. So people are doing videos and I think all that will evolve. So collaboration tools will evolve a lot. The second thing I'm finding, which has nothing to do with technology, that as I looked at my own organization, what we find is more productivity does not mean people are more happy. What we found was that in our pulse surveys, people were feeling a lot more stressed. And I might see it for myself, sitting in these calls from morning till evening, by evening, like I'm done, right? So I think what we have to allow for people to do is use more of the relaxation method. So for example, in our organizations, we rolled out a breath and meditation over Zoom, right? So basically we did it for a few days. We trained the people on, and some people were skeptical, but after they did it, it's a good way to disconnect. So we are also giving tools. So I think those tools will also evolve in the organization. So both collaboration, do more work, but at the same time, digitally, how you can kind of balance your work life will also come in. So those are the two trends, besides the hybrid cloud becoming more relevant, virtual desktops becoming more and more important, web-based applications, which we all know. But those are the ones I think are going to be becoming more and more prominent going forward.
Being in a technical company and being heavy in infrastructure, really, you guys are the baseline, the plumbing that makes all of the whole thing work, right? So it must be really interesting when you're working with this highly educated role, highly engineer probably based, technical engineer based culture, talking about the idea of a restroom or meditating, or right, in order to maintain your sharpness and creativity, we know you got to rest and recover, right?
Yeah, and I think that is the funny part. Like people who said, I'm most busy, I don't have any time for that. I think we said, actually, you need it the most, right? So we did it on the company dime. We did it on company time, because the thing is, nobody has infinite capacity. You have to increase your capacity. So we said, we are not going to change the environment around you, but how do we give you better coping abilities? And funnily enough, the people who are like, what is all this? They're actually the ones that gain most out of it. So I think we have to get creative as leaders in terms of giving the psychological safety, number one, which we heard in the previous thing, that it's okay to slack off a little bit, because yeah, we understand you have small kids, and it's okay that if you're not able to really put effort, because people are feeling pressured, right? They have to be on the calls. So giving them psychological safety and some tools. And I think the business will just continue to do well, because for technology companies and the transformation, the companies that are in the cutting edge of transformation, I think sooner or later they will start well. But taking people along with you is an important thing that we all need to focus on, in my view.
Well, you know, it's interesting, if there's a kind of a silver lining with the pandemic, maybe it's we all treat each other better and treat ourselves better through working through a crisis, right? You know, early on in the Valley, we started these summits in about 2010, was our first one in the Valley. And I ran into a really interesting executive, a tech exec from the Valley. Most of you will know this name, David Smoley. And David at the time was at Flextronics, and then he went to AstraZeneca, and right now he's at Apple. And David said, you know, really, you know, Hunter, really to drive innovation, you got to limit resources. You got to strangle or limit resources. And then therein lies the creativity. it's an interesting angle or dynamic, but certainly a pandemic hits, things get limited, and people become more creative. John, any comments on that idea, or kind of the work from home, or let's call it like, you know, the R&R methodology? How do you rest and recover?
No, I mean, I think everything that Rahul and Jason and Scott has said here is exactly correct. And we heard it this morning also from Gary about, you know, what's the new normal going to look like. And I think there's going to be this hybrid working environment. What we've been communicating since kind of the get-go is when there's a vaccine found, there won't be a going back. We will not go back to a way of work that it used to be. I think the travel industry is going to continue to evolve. And I think just, you know, enterprise sales of software companies, as an example, will be different, and it'll be a kind of hybrid world as we go forward. And so, yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be a new normal for sure, right? And so, to your point about innovation, I think we're seeing that leaps and bounds. I think this pandemic has shown us. Look, I personally was not a big work from home fan. I can tell you that. Pre-pandemic, I was like, well, people that work from home are kind of goofing off, or like they're not putting in the full day. And what we're seeing, to Rahul's point, is that our employees and everyone responded to this, and you know, they're working on online, and we're seeing output of productivity that no one had ever expected in this new world that we're working in. But come with that is this need for you to take care of your employees, and some people have adapted to it really well and being able to take their breaks and schedule. Other people, we have employees that we're, you know, focused on with programs. That's, hey, you need to take your breaks. You need to spend time with your family. You need to, you know, start your day, finish your day, all of that kind of thing. So we're learning, I think 9 months in, almost that we are now, 8 months, 9 months in. I think a lot of people have generally figured it out, but I think where people are thinking is what's next as we go into 2021. And I think it's going to be a lot of the same, but slightly different. So that's what everybody's trying to predict.
Exciting time, right, John? I mean, most interesting time in your career, probably.
You know, you said it at the outset this morning. I've been in this business 30 years, and this is definitely the most exciting time that I found out to be in IT, because now everyone is really looking for data. Everyone wants, you know, there's so much of it available, and everybody wants to get it, and everybody wants to utilize it. And it's putting a lot of demands on IT organizations for sure.
Look,
so I find it very, very exciting.
Very cool, John. And thanks for quoting that. You know, you think about it, guys, we're lucky to be in this industry because we're changing the world. We're lucky to be in this industry because in essence, we're blessed to have so much at our fingertips to help the world innovate and change and pivot. I remember talking to Pat Gelsinger at VMware. He's saying, you know, I'm blessed. I said, what do you mean, Pat? He goes, I'm blessed. I came to the Valley 30 years ago, and my wife and I had an amazing run at it here in the Valley. And I can't say much more than that, but we are very fortunate and lucky to have chosen this profession, and a pretty exciting time. I mean, and to connect it to a totally different idea, the famed Andy Grove would say only the paranoid survive in the Valley. And in a way, that's kind of like the pivot or the tee up. Like, you got to pivot and move to stay in the next curve, that next successful point. Jason?
Yeah, well, absolutely. You know, and always be thinking about where the next opportunities are going to come from. You know, just thinking about some of the comments that were made around how our organizations have transformed as a result of this pandemic and what we've gone through, what we're still learning. I feel like there's still big opportunities in the area of onboarding new staff, new employees, and people that come into organizations. That's a particular challenge, I think, that we haven't quite solved for yet. As we go through this process of learning how not just to be effective colleagues within our workspace, our digital workspace, but how to bring new people into the family effectively. It's a tough time to be starting a new job when you have to do it completely virtually. So that's, I think, an area of opportunity for us.
Hey, Jason, how can people get in touch with you, reach out and get engaged?
People can reach me at jbeard@informatica.com or on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to hear from anybody. Look forward to staying connected, and thanks again for the opportunity to speak today.
Great job. Appreciate your support as well. Hey, Scott, final comments?
I think if this had happened earlier, so in 2008, I was a business unit CIO at Black & Decker, and we went through the housing crisis. And once again, probably one of the worst industries to be in there at Black & Decker as the housing crisis and financial bubble was hitting. We wouldn't have been able to survive and thrive like we are now. The technology is finally where it's supposed to be. We're finally able to use data to work from home, to collaborate remotely because of the technology. So completely agree with you, Hunter. Never a better time to be in this industry.
Awesome. Great to see you. Thanks for being here, Scott. Hey, Raul, final comments?
Yeah, something I'll echo yours, like constraints are liberating. I think it's good for our company as well as for customers to think about the transformation they want to drive. And this is the best time to make those changes and transformation right now.
Excellent. How can people get in touch with you or people at Nutanix?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn as well as my email is firstname.lastname rahul.tripathi@nutanix.com.
Great job. Hey, gentlemen, excellent job. Really appreciate your active support and engagement in the HMG platform. We've done over 90 summits in the past 9 months across North America, including Europe, probably 10 webinars as well. And really enjoy keeping everyone connected around thinking differently, thinking innovatively, thinking on that leading edge, that next best thing or that next new idea. And we're doing this all together. It's an awesome time. And big shout out to my friends, Mark Polanski, Tony Leng, Catherine, all the speakers, the Chris Gates and others and the panelists, our partners. We really could not do what we do without our partners. If and when they reach out to you, please reach back to them and take a call, take a 20-minute call and learn something new about some really cool technologies. David with Better Cloud, LogZIO, Darktrace, Zoom, Xylo, Vante, Informatica, Nutanix, and Duo. Really, really appreciate it. And Checkpoint. Guys, be safe. Stay connected. We have one more thing to do. August Policio. August, you going to join the stadium, the stage?
Hey, Hunter. Good to see you.
Yeah, August runs our social media, guys, and we do over 100,000 views a week, probably over 1 million impressions a month easily. And August also helps with the HMG Top 2020-2021 Technology Executives That Matter recognition program. August, you want to give everyone a little update on what we had planned?
Sure thing. Well, first of all, I want to reach out to everybody just to make sure we know how to stay engaged and nominate for these great awards. We couldn't do what we do, recognizing these great IT leaders for the last 10 years and more without the help of our network and our community, identifying and nominating your peers, your colleagues, and your friends to receive these Global Technology Executives Who Matter awards. So right there on our website, on our main landing page, you can find the 2020 awards program page. And I'll bring it up on the screen here just so everyone can take a good look at it. You know, today, every company is a technology company and every technology expert is expected to come up with new, fresh ideas to leverage the technology and deliver new business value. So this is the kind of initiative that we're looking for to recognize. Right down at the bottom of this page, you can get to our nomination website. Submit any colleague, friend, peer, yourself, somebody in your community, somebody in your organization that's just innovating at light speed and creating a difference for the future of IT. Happy to recognize them, put them into the pool. And another thing that's really exciting coming up here is going to be our 10-year anniversary gala. In March of 2021, we're going to be recognizing the best of the best from all the years that we've been compiling this great, strong network of over 400,000 IT leaders and over 200 award recipients over the years. The concept is to highlight the way that courageous leadership has fueled this digital pivot in 2020 with the pandemic, how authentic leadership has brought teams together and allowed us to move forward in the industry. So March 2021, we'll be assembling the best cast of absolute technology rock stars yet in 14 years here. Hunter, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of depth to what we're aiming to accomplish with that program.
No, well said. Well said. We're it's a global platform. It's a global program, and I think everyone should realize in this new work from anywhere environment, you need to accelerate your global brand. We put millions of dollars into the digital platform, the digital highway, if you will, of the HMG platform to get your thought leadership, your brand out there scaled across the world. So people in your current role, your current company, your current team know that you're a thought leader, know that you're really, truly dynamic, an innovator, a disruptor, someone they want to follow. And so that it helps keeping people, it helps retaining people, it helps recruiting people. And by the way, it helps setting you up for that next new big idea, that next new big opportunity is accelerating your brand across our digital highway. So yes, it's a regional nomination process, but it rolls up into our global platform and a global program next March of 2021. So really, really excited about that. I think that's it, August. Great job. It's a wrap. Thank you to the HMG team, and thank you to all our partners. Really appreciate your active engagement, and looking forward to being with you next time. Take care. Bye now.